player, game show host, father of 5, and all-around big dude. I'm also an expert on drama. I know all kinds of drama. There's the good kind that comes with having a house full of kids. There's the bad kind, like season-ending injuries. There's the necessary kind, like having an agent in Hollywood. And there's silly drama, like the drama around my percolating pectorals. And then there's the drama you can skip.
Skip the drama that comes with not having your high school diploma or equivalency. Find free adult education classes near you and finish your high school diploma. Visit finishyourdiploma.org.
Or text diploma to 97779. Message and data rates may apply. Reply stop to opt out. That's diploma to 97779. And leave the drama to actors like me.
Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes?
How could he do this to you? And for Sheila, she has split ends.
B, console her?
Oh, sweetie, this is going to happen a lot. 4, maybe 5 more times before you get married.
C, take charge?
Got to get this all straightened out. Keep a little talking to, man to man, mano a mano. Hey, Steve. It's now a good time? No? Okay, no problem. Bye.
Or D, help her find a new boyfriend?
I know a great place to meet boys. The internet. Nice, single boys. Never mind. How about some ice cream?
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
This is you over 30 years ago.
Are we there yet? Are we there yet?
And this is your mom when you drive her back from therapy.
Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet?
Roles change without us noticing, and in your new role, we help you help. AARP gives you the information to help care for your mom so that you can have patience with her, just like she did with you. Visit aarp.org/caregiving or call 1-877-333-5885 to get practical health and wellness tips to provide even better care for your loved one.
Are we there yet?
Remember, visit aarp.org/caregiving. AARP, we help you help. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
When I was little, I didn't talk for a long time. I liked things to always be the same. Anything new or different would scare and upset me. I was very sensitive to lights and sounds. It was almost like I had bigger eyes and ears than everyone else. So I built secret hiding places where nothing could get in. I didn't like looking people in the eye. It made me feel uncomfortable. I'd throw big tantrums over little things like when my socks didn't match. Sometimes I'd do the same things over and over. Until one day, I found out I had autism. My family got me help. Slowly, I learned how to live with it better.
You can see signs of autism in children as young as 18 months. Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org/signs. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
It's Thursday night, and you're grabbing drinks with some friends. Started off with a pitcher for the table, which quickly becomes 2. There's pool. And there's the photo booth.
All right, everybody squeeze in. Say cheese.
Followed naturally by an order of wings. And another.
Can we get some extra ranch sauce?
Then there's the ceremonial nightcap.
So what are we doing this weekend?
And lastly, it's back to the car, which, if you're buzzed, could be the most expensive night of your life. Getting pulled over for buzzed driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzzed driving, because buzzed driving is drunk driving. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Of course my kid's in the right car seat. Well, I think he is.
Yeah, my kid's in a booster seat. He was ready to move up. He is ready, right?
Her car seat looks like the right size.
There are probably rules on when to move up to a booster seat, aren't there?
Rear facing, forward facing. I think I have it right.
Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Are your children in the right car seat for their age and size? Don't think you know. Know you know. Go to safercar.gov/the right seat.
I know my child's in the right car seat, or else I wouldn't get in the driver's seat.
Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
You don't usually get a stock tip from a 16-year-old, but I'm here to tell you about a different kind of stock. It's called Better Futures, a stock for social change that's not about making money. Instead, you invest to help students like me go to college. This is beyond a simple donation. It's the opportunity for America to invest in its kids and take an active stake in the future of the country. The return on your investment isn't money. What you get back is knowing you protected our potential. So one day, that potential can grow up to become surgeons and architects, executives and engineers, people who could change the future just by being a part of it. My name is Alicia, and I'm your dividend.
Invest in better futures with UNCF. Visit uncf.org/invest. A mind is a terrible thing to waste, but a wonderful thing to invest in. A public service announcement brought to you by UNCF and the Ad Council.
This is Nnamdi Asamoah. I play football for the Philadelphia Eagles, but what I do off the field with United Way might be more important. I'm a volunteer tutor and mentor. Why? Because over 1 million kids a year drop out of school, and that's not okay. It takes 12 years to create a graduate, but it takes about the same time to create a dropout. And the difference between a child becoming one or the other could be me, or it could be you. Studies show that if we get to these kids earlier, their chances are better. And kids who read well by 3rd grade are more likely to graduate. So join me in United Way. Suit up and take the pledge. Become a volunteer reader, tutor, or mentor. Because when a child succeeds, we all succeed. Give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Take the pledge at unitedway.org. Brought to you by United Way, the Ad Council, and the National Football League.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Tiki Barber says that there's somebody dead to him. I wonder who it is. The Giants trade for Panthers edge rusher Brian Burns and signs him for 5 years and $150 million. And the Chiefs make Chris Jones the highest paid defensive tackle, signing a 5-year, $58.75 million contract, and much, much more here on the Sports Loudmouth. Doc Rivers is going to have Damian Lillard run very fast out of town. Does he help them win? You're under 500. Aaron Judge helps the Yankees win. You're paying the player $300 million. You better be sure that that guy's going to help you get over the hump. For some reason, this guy is completely lost on calling plays. Maybe he's a therapist. Jackson trying to the right. No, he didn't. We are back for a new show of the Sports Loudmouth. I'm your host, Daryl Marks, my co-host, Speedy Petey. There will be no Sean Smith tonight. as a family member has passed away. Go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Check out all our shows throughout the week, including The Loudmouth with me, Speedy Petey, and Sean Smith every single Wednesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. All you have to do to tune in and check out our local listings is go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Call us at 631-672-3108. It's been a crazy day. I just walked in, came from the train station. I went to this, I would say it was a great Jason Barrett summit. I met a lot of different people at the summit. Stephen A. Smith spoke at the event. I want to apologize for the fans. I have had not a second to even rest. I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning, got on the train at 5:30, got into the city about, I would say, 7 o'clock, took an Uber all the way to where I needed to be, get in there, get all the different stuff, all the credentials and all the different stuff I needed. And then I really had to just go right into the meeting. It's just crazy. It was a crazy day, and I have to do it all again tomorrow. So I'm not excited about that. But again, we have a great show lined up for you. But before that, Speedy, what's up, man?
I'm doing all right. I just want to send the condolences to Sean and his family as well, too. It was his daughter's grandmother that passed away today. His brother informed me of it just about 20 minutes ago that Sean will not be here tonight, and very sad what happened. So sending prayers, sending condolences to Sean and his family.
Yes, my condolences to him and his family. Again, it's been a crazy day, and I'm lucky to be alive. I ran from the train station to get over here. I got off the train about 7:30, and then I had to take a side road. The cops cut off a road, and I had to take a detour. It was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. But I am here. We did start the show an hour late. I want to apologize to all the fans. I need to get my breath, but nevertheless, we're going to be doing a show, and we have a great show lined up for you guys. At 9 o'clock, we'll be talking to former Packers, Panthers, and Seahawks guard, our friend Mike Wahle. He'll be joining us. And at 10:30, we will be talking for the first time on our show to, obviously, the Seattle Mariners TV play-by-play broadcaster, Dave Sims. Lot to get into. We'll get into free agency. Tiki says that Saquon is dead to him after signing the Eagles contract. The Giants trade for Panthers edge rusher Brian Burns and signs him to a 5-year, $150 million deal. And the Chiefs make Chris Jones the highest paid defensive tackle, signing him to a 5-year, $157.75 million contract. Reports say that the Bears aren't getting the value they want for Justin Fields, and Craig Carton called Fields a wide receiver. Who cares what Craig Carton says? Recapping notable NFL free agent signings, Aaron Rodgers, a candidate for the vice president position for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I think it's ridiculous, but by the way, it's not going to happen. Ex-Vanderbilt quarterback Mo Hasan. Hasan says he was paid by an Italian mob to rig a football game. Very interesting. I didn't even read this story.
$300,000.
I'm going to have to read the story before we, at one of the breaks before we get into this. And Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul exhibition boxing match scheduled for July 20th, which we didn't talk about it last week. So we'll talk about it tonight. So let's get into it because there's a lot to get into. And the first story that has really hit the New York waves is Saquon Barkley. And Saquon Barkley, before we get into this whole Tiki Barber shebang, okay, because it is a shebang, I have no idea why Tiki is throwing Saquon under the bus, especially when Tiki walked out on the New York Giants the season before they went to the Super Bowl. Made no sense. And retires out of nowhere. He decides, hey, you know what? I don't want to play the game anymore. Screw the Giants. Screw everybody. I'm retiring. Saquon Barkley signed a 3-year, $37.75 million contract with the Eagles. And Tiki took shots at him. Tiki said on WFAN, good luck. You're dead to me. Tiki said, before he signed with the Eagles, if he goes to Philly, I might never say his name again. Saquon responded, "You've been a hater since I got to New York." Saquon also mocked Tiki for retiring early than expected from the Giants. Sarcastically says, "Yeah, you're the prime example of loyalty to a team." Tiki Barber and Saquon Barkley have had the same amount of 1,000-yard rushing seasons, but Tiki played 10 years while Saquon only played 6. You know, we could get into this and we could go back and forth with the whole Tiki Barber and Saquon Barkley careers, okay? But Tiki was in the league for 10 years. He didn't really develop until later in his career. He fought injury after injury after injury. And maybe that's why Saquon is, really taking shots at Tiki Barber. But guess what? I bet you if Tiki didn't say anything, Saquon would never bring up any of this. But I'm sure Saquon was thinking about this for years about Tiki Barber, because every time these guys see each other at a banquet, at a dinner, anywhere where the New York Giants are holding an award show, Tiki kisses Saquon Barkley's butt. You don't see Saquon going out there and saying, "Oh, he's the best running back the New York Giants ever had." He's not going to say that, ladies and gentlemen. Why would he say that? Because Saquon believes he is the most talented running back the Giants have ever drafted and ever had on their roster. That goes for Earth, Wind, and Fire, ladies and gentlemen. In Jones, Ward, and obviously our friends. Yes, we've been trying to get him on the show, Steve. We've been trying to get him on the show. You know who I'm talking about.
Brandon Jacobs, who Brandon even said the first time we had him on the show.
I did mention Jacobs, but anyways, nevertheless, Earth, Wind, and Fire were 3 really good running backs, but they were a tandem. There wasn't one guy. You sit here and you go back and you argue your points about where Saquon Barkley is in his career. This could be the tail end of his career. Usually running backs at the age of 27, 28, they might have 2 more years left in them. But Saquon Barkley has been dealing with injuries, so his knees might be healthier than most running backs because he hasn't put any torque on them. After he tore his ACL 2 years ago, Saquon's still been a pretty good running back in this league. As a matter of fact, he's getting more than over 1,000 all-purpose yards catching and running the ball. That's what you want from a running back. When you look at Breece Hall coming back from his torn ACL, he had over 1,500 all-purpose yards this year. Now, you need a running back that can do both. He could be a dual threat. A lot of these teams, they have one guy that is a north and south guy, and then they have another guy that's an east-west guy. Saquon could do both. He can catch the ball in the backfield. He can run the ball north and south. He can run the ball east and west. He can run the ball right over Tiki Barber's ugly face. The fact is, the New York Giants did not respect a guy like Saquon Barkley. They never did. Because if they did, they would have extended him last year when they had the chance to. $37.75 million is not a lot of money to the New York Giants organization. Yes, they don't want to spend it on a running back, as Jeff always says. You don't spend it on a running back. But Saquon Barkley is not just any running back. Saquon Barkley is one of the elite running backs in the NFL. One of the top 3, maybe 4 in all of the NFL. And you sit here and you wonder, why is Tiki? He's on WFAN, all the Giant fans, they're all pissed off right now that this man is no longer going to be wearing the blue, red, and white. And he's going to jump ship and go and wear the green and white, play in Philadelphia where all Giant fans can't stand the Philadelphia fans, and have to see him not once, but twice a year moving forward for the next 3 years.
Yeah, he'll probably score more touchdowns against the Giants than the Giants will have from their running backs all season.
I don't know what the Giants were thinking. Now, I love the Brian Burns move. I do. I think it was a great trade for the New York Giants. They had a linebacker that they desperately needed, a leader, a guy that's one of the best in the league, top 5. There's no question that he is. They overpaid for him. They gave him $150 million, a guy they never drafted, a guy that was not a part of the organization, and a guy that you drafted, what was it, 4-5 years ago. You went and drafted him at number 2 when you could have drafted a quarterback that you wanted or whatever, a defensive linebacker, whatever you wanted to go after that year. You decided to go with a running back where everybody was questioning why would you draft the running back. Now, finally, this guy is 100% healthy, and you say, you know what, we don't want to pay you. We don't want to give you the money. You're not worth it. No running back's worth that kind of money. It's so funny, and it's so fitting that, you know what Saquon Barkley did? Is he said, you know what, I'm taking wherever the money is going. I am going to go wherever the money is dished out to me. And the first team that was going to offer him when tampering started was the Philadelphia Eagles. So why is he crying? He's not crying. He's laughing to the bank. And why are the Giants crying? Well, maybe because they didn't decide, hey, you know what? It's only $37 million. We should have paid them.
Yeah, which was not far behind the offer that they were going to give him in 2022 when this whole offseason saga started last year. The reports were coming out that Saquon was offered a $12 million a year contract over 4 years, $48 million at the 2022 season, and he declined it. So this offer was not far that the Giants couldn't have said, all right, we could alleviate the price a little more to keep him there, because the Eagles, obviously they have a lot more leeway to give him that kind of money than the Giants do, but that doesn't mean that the Giants shouldn't try. Now, yes, there is the cliche of you don't pay the running backs, but every team that goes through those kinds of circumstances either has a quarterback in place or has an offensive coach that's been steadily good at platooning running backs, which we have not seen Brian Daboll do. I know Brian Daboll has been a good coach X's and O's wise, but we have not seen him get tested in that the same way we've seen it with Kyle Shanahan and Mike McDaniel and all these other guys you consider offensive-minded head coaches. So I don't know if the Giants had that kind of leeway to do that. And obviously the relationship really fell apart really the last year and a half. And I was talking to this when you yesterday on the phone. The Giants, if they knew they were never going to keep him, should have had a better plan B than they did. They could have traded for a wide receiver for years, never did. They could have traded for offensive linemen, or maybe they could have traded up for a quarterback if they knew they didn't want to pay Daniel Jones either, because now they don't want to keep Daniel Jones allegedly. So it's just a really bad example of Joe Schoen not having a plan B, and they made it happen. Saquon Barkley does this all the time. The NFC teams do this all the time. They love to go to the rival teams, and it was the best of both worlds for him.
Well, I'm going to say this. Saquon Barkley didn't choose to go to the Eagles. The Eagles chose him. The Giants had a chance to choose Saquon Barkley. They decided to part ways with him and pay a guy that was not a part of this roster, who they only gave up a 2nd and a 5th round draft pick for a guy that I think he's fantastic. He's a great player, but you're going to pay him $150 million. Why couldn't you take at least $30 million out of that and paid Saquon Barkley? I bet you that if you look at this move, Brian Burns would have taken $120 million. He would have taken $115 million. He's not going to get all that money. He's going to take the guaranteed money. He's probably going to be He's going to be with the Giants for 3 years. And then after the 3 years, the Giants are either going to renegotiate the deal or part ways with him.
Or he'll force his way out if it continues to keep being this dysfunctional.
It's already dysfunctional.
Oh, yeah. It's been dysfunctional for the last 6 years.
But it's already dysfunctional. They have Daboll there. He had one good season. Giant fans were so excited because they beat Minnesota in the first round, and then they get crushed by the Philadelphia Eagles in the second round. And now this year, they don't even make the playoffs. They barely win 6 games. And now everybody's sitting there after Wink Martindale walks out. The offensive coordinator walks out. This guy walks out. This guy walks out. Everybody's walking out because they have Hitler coaching the team.
and Evan Neal's still on the team. So, that offensive line's still not going to be any good. John Ferris said they never even treated him, offered him a contract. The Giants treated him like crap. Hope he kills him next year. Barkley's back home. And he also says Joe Mixon was a great pick for the Texans. Yes, that was a nice move, only for a 7th-round pick. But, John, you bring up a good point, though, about the Tiki Barber comments, though, too. Like, Tiki Barber did not go through that kind of dysfunction when he was with the Giants, maybe at the beginning of a career when he was drafted, because the 90s, the Giants were really bad. But they also went to a Super Bowl and lost to the Ravens like 3 years into his career. And then the Giants were pretty steadily competitive after that, every year pretty much. I think they had one losing record with Coughlin there. Obviously, Coughlin had the anger management issues. He had to really alleviate himself as a coach, but he still was a winning coach. The Giants didn't win a Super Bowl till 2007, but they were consistently a contender. Not like they are now. Ever since Coughlin left, they've had 2 playoff years. One was a fluke because the defense was really good in 2016. And the other one was the Giants were winning a lot of close games and almost collapsed. And they were still like a 9-win team. So like, it's not like the Giants have had the organizational stability that Saquon Barkley could say, all right, I could trust myself to stay there. You did not play for that level of dysfunction. So you have no right to comment on that kind of thing.
And here's the thing, Tiki, he comes out and wants to throw everybody under the bus. His career he's had 10,449 yards and 55 touchdowns. Saquon Barkley, okay, has only played for 6 years and really missed 1 year. So it's really 5 years he's played. 5 years he's played. And this is incredible. If you look at his numbers, obviously he doesn't have that kind of numbers. He doesn't have 10,000 yards, but his numbers are right there. His numbers are right there where you can compare, not to Tiki Barber, but it's there. 5,211 yards. He has 35 touchdowns. He has 2,100 yards caught as a wide receiver.
Yep.
So, I mean, he is more prolific, I think, in the time that he was there than Tiki Barber was. Because Tiki played 10 years, and he practically stayed healthy for those 10 years. He played all those years, except when he walked out on the Giants his 10th year in the middle of the season.
Right.
Besides that, he played almost every single game. And that was 154 games in 10 years. He had 10,449 yards and 55 touchdowns. If you look at what Saquon Barkley did in just 5 years, he's done probably more and better than what Tiki Barber did for the New York Giants. Now, obviously, Tiki Barber was he was an All-Pro player, and he was a 3-time Pro Bowl player. I don't believe Saquon was ever an All-Pro player.
I don't think so.
But he was a Rookie of the Year candidate, and he was in two Pro Bowls. So I do see that Tiki Barber has better numbers than Saquon, but he played longer. And the fact that Tiki wants to attack him, and listen, Tiki has every right to say whatever he wants. It's a free country. But to throw Saquon Barkley under the bus and think that Saquon's not going to attack him back is ridiculous. Because Saquon is going to stand up for himself. He's a man. And by the way, he did what anybody else would have done. He would have taken the money. And the Giants were not giving him the money. Right. So he decided, you know what? You don't want to pay me? I'm out of here, bro. And he took his car and he drove himself down to Eagle Land. And I'm going to tell you this right now. I'm going to tell you this, and you can book it. When he plays the Eagles this year, I wouldn't be surprised he gets over 250 yards in 2 games and 3 touchdowns.
Fish and I were discussing it earlier. It's the easiest DFS bet you could make. Whatever Saquon Barkley returns to New York, bank it in for over 2.5 touchdowns he has in that game. The ultimate revenge game. But the other thing, too, with those stats that you were comparing as well, Tiki Barber, most of his Giants career, played with a very good offensive line. Saquon Barkley has yet to play with a good offensive line in his career, and he's still putting up those kinds of numbers. And now he goes to the Eagles. I know Jason Kelce retired. That is still a very good offensive line that he's going to be able to put up. So he could definitely get to 8,000-something yards by the time his Eagles contract is up, and maybe the Eagles re-extend him and he gets to 10,000 yards at that point.
The Panthers traded Pro Bowl edge rusher Brian Burns to the Giants for a 2nd and 5th round draft pick. 5th round draft pick in 2025, and a 2nd round draft pick this year, which they obviously received from the Seattle Seahawks from Leonard Williams. So obviously this was a good move by the New York Giants, but I didn't like the contract. The Burns contract, that obviously the Giants signed him to a new deal, 5 years, $150 million contract, $87.5 million guaranteed. Burns cap hit will be $23.5 million this season, and then over $27 million each of the next 4 seasons, which is ridiculous. Burns has played 15 or more games in every season in his 5-year career. Burns had 8 sacks, 16 tackles for loss, 18 quarterback hits, and 11% pressure rate this season. In 5 NFL seasons, Burns has 46 sacks, 59 tackles for loss, and 95 quarterback hits, and a 10.5% pressure rate. This guy is one of the best linebackers in the league. You can move him anywhere on the line. You could put him at defensive end if you need him. You could put him inside if you need him. He can stop the run. He can get to the quarterback. He can do everything. He's that good. But $150 million, $87 million guaranteed is ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Now, I'm not saying that Brian Burns isn't worth that $150 million contract. For other teams, it was worth it. But the Giants have so many needs, not just linebacker. They bring in Singletary. We'll get into the free agency market, what everybody did. Brian Burns is a sensational player. You probably can count less than a handful of linebackers that could do what this guy could do on a football field. And you didn't have to give up much, a second and a fifth. Obviously, we're just trying to get rid of him because they didn't want to sign him. But the contract is a killer for the New York Giants. $27 million for the next 4 years? That's a lot of money to a defensive lineman. A guy that obviously plays 15, 16 games this season. That's fine. He's durable. That's great. You're giving him wide receiver money. He is not a guy that's going to go out there and score touchdowns for you. He's not a guy like Saquon Barkley that's going to give you 10 touchdowns, 1,500 yards. Now, obviously, running backs are not that important to these NFL teams anymore. But nevertheless, you sit here today and you wonder where the Giants are going at wide receiver. Calvin Ridley just signed a contract. He's headed to the Titans. It doesn't matter if it's a lot. He's going to the Titans. That's it. He's going 4 years, $92 million, I think it is. It doesn't matter how much it is. The fact is the Giants didn't get him. The Giants have no wide receivers. You're going into another season where you're putting Daniel Jones in harm's way. What are the Giants going to do this year? Now, they better hope that the wide receiver they want is there at 6. Because if he isn't, and you decide to go after J.J. McCarthy, which everybody predicts could happen as he's moving up on everybody's draft board, the Giants could be in a lot of trouble. And I'm not saying this I'm not a Giant fan, and I'm not saying this to hurt all the Giant fans, to be selfless because I'm a Jet fan. I'm going to tell you this right now. If the Giants do not add a wide receiver, a veteran wide receiver to whoever they bring in, if it's, I don't know who it's going to be now because it's not going to be Harrison Jr.
No,
it's not. We don't even know if it's going to be Neighbors. Who's it going to be?
Chargers just cut Mike Williams today, so they could draft a wide receiver now.
A Doomsday?
Yeah.
I mean, is he going to be there? I just don't know where the Giants are going to go. Maybe Coleman. I'm sure Coleman will be there at 6. Are you going to move up and get and reach for a guy like Coleman?
Right. Yeah, maybe you have to trade back at that point. I mean, maybe if you like Coleman, but
maybe Bowers.
Maybe you go offensive line, then trade up into the first round again. I don't know. The Giants are not helping themselves either because even some of the second target wide receivers that they could have gotten. I know you were saying Gabe Davis all off season, and he goes to Jacksonville, so he's
everybody. All the wide receivers are signed.
Yeah,
they're all gone. And even the Jets, who I thought had a chance to get Calvin Ridley, that's not happening. There really is no wide receivers available. Everybody has signed already. Everybody's gone.
Yep.
Everybody's gone. So you have to hope that one of these teams are going to drop one of their wide receivers. They don't want to pay him. He's going to hurt their cap space for next year. And they just decide, hey, we're going to part ways this year. So it opens up room for next year.
Maybe the Bengals trading Higgins is the only chance at this point.
For the Giants, the Jets are not.
No, the Jets don't need it. Yeah, the Jets don't need a wide receiver one. The Jets need a good wide receiver.
The Giants still have a first-round draft pick. They still have a second-round draft pick. They still have a third-round draft pick.
Mm-hmm.
So they if they want Higgins, they could still go after Higgins. If they want to trade that, they could still keep their first-round draft pick. For Higgins, I could see the Giants giving up a second this year and a second next year. I think that would seal the deal for a guy like Higgins.
Right. The difference is the Jets don't need the wide receiver one. They just need a better wide receiver two than Alan Lazard or whoever else they're going to throw out there, because Garrett Wilson is a wide receiver one.
Like who?
Yeah, that's the question at this point. Because
Devontae Adams, it doesn't look like he's going to be available.
Nope. The Jets maybe just have to explore like what Cleveland just did. Just get like somebody like Judy, like not Judy specifically because he's gone now, but somebody of that value, just a better second receiver than Alan Lazard. Alan Lazard is fine with Aaron Rodgers, but still, like, can you trust him to stay healthy? Can you trust him to not drop passes like he did last year and just do all the other things? But going back to the Giants, yeah, it's going to be hard for them because the other one I wanted for them to potentially be available was Pittman, but Pittman now signs a new contract with the Colts. The Colts are better than expected last year. I think they would have let him go otherwise, and they wouldn't have paid Jonathan Taylor. So that's gone now for the Giants. I don't think like we said last week, I don't think Ayuk's going to be available either. So it's really T. Higgins or bust to get anything for the Giants at this point at wide receiver. And going back to the Burns contract, it's fine. I think it's a good deal, but like they're not one player away on either side of the ball either.
You know who the Jets should look at? Hunter Renfrow. Okay. He is going to be available. He just got released. He's a guy that I would look at. The Giants, if Cortland Sutton is up for a trade, I would trade for Cortland Sutton because I've heard that the Broncos want to part ways with all their wide receivers and rebuild. So maybe they go that way because they're probably drafting a quarterback in this coming draft. I don't know, but the Giants and the Jets have to look for a playmaker, and there's not many out there. And like I said, Renfrow is a guy that will be cheap. You can bring him in. He'll probably cost about $3-4 million. You could put him in the slot. You could put him on the outside. He's a guy that can catch the ball, move the chains. That's what the Jets need. And maybe you could get something out of nothing with a guy like Renfrow, who obviously Las Vegas just lost the will to throw the ball to him. I don't know what it was, but it's horrible what happened to Hunter Renfrow. John Gruden drafts him. He has a good rookie season. He looked good his second year before he got hurt. And then all of a sudden, John Gruden gets fired, and then everything went downhill when they brought in Josh McDaniels.
Yep, that's what happened in his career. He was ruined by the great Josh McDaniels, who only two guys have ever strived in that offense, and they're both Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs, who, by the way, is now in Green Bay.
I mean, let's bring Fish in because he's a Giant fan, and I'm sure as a Giant fan right now, he's sitting here and he's sweating. I know he was reaching out to us during the weekend, arguing the point, well, I'm going to get rid of my jerseys. I want nothing to do with Saquon Barkley anymore. I'm not going to wear his jersey anymore. It was probably the most wasted money on jerseys that I've ever spent on jerseys. So what were your thoughts of Saquon Barkley signing with the Eagles?
Well, the biggest waste of money on jerseys is when I bought a LeVar Arrington Giants jersey. So that isn't going to be rivaled. He played 3 games. I think I got it right before he tore his Achilles and never played again.
By the way, we actually interviewed LeVar.
Yeah, last year.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he was such an exciting player, especially in college. I mean, he killed us for years, and he actually played really well those first few games before he hurt himself.
Just like
he was
LeVar
incredible.
Arrington.
Well, Penn State, Saquon Barkley. I actually have a personal story. I went to see the very first spring practice of Saquon's breakout year in college, as a coaching clinic when I was coaching with this college coach who he just left high school to go to college. And I got to stay there. I got to meet all the coaches at the time and watch this running back drill when I'm standing there. And I'm like, who in God's name are these two guys? And sure enough, it was Saquon Barkley and Miles Sanders in their first warmups. And they finished like 2nd or 3rd overall at the end of that season. And I've been a fan of his ever since. Rookie of the year, had an amazing rookie season. And then, injuries, freak injuries too, the weird stepping on the foot injury. This is my emotions. I don't know if I'm even answering your question. You realize I've gone through the 7 stages of grief right now. This is something that could not happen. You asked me on the show, and you called this, Errol. You said this was going to be what happens. He's going to go to the Eagles. And I said, God forbid, on this program. And, that's exactly what happened. And I don't think Saquon understands that although none of us, are upset that he got money, we just can't root for him ever again. It's just he is, as Tiki said, dead to us. It's just
I don't know if you could put him in that dead mark because it wasn't his fault. He took wherever the money was going to be given to him. You can't hate on a player that was going to take the money. The Giants didn't offer him the money. The Giants wouldn't even offer him $11 million. So why wouldn't he take the 14, 15 million that the Eagles were offering him? And I think they guaranteed him 20-something million dollars. So why wouldn't he take that? And by the way, Fish, and I understand that a lot of Giant fans are hurt, really butthurt by Saquon Barkley taking the Eagles over the Giants. He didn't take the Eagles over the Giants. The Giants never gave him anything. So I know the Giant fans are upset about Saquon Barkley, and you're mad that you're not going to root for him anymore. Why wouldn't you root for him? I would still cheer for him. I'm not going to go out there when he puts up 150 against me, but when he comes out on a Giants field, I would cheer him. I wouldn't boo him. That's not his fault. That's the Giants' fault. He should have been a Giant for life. That's the truth. He should have been a Giant for life.
Then why didn't he take the same deal before the 2022 season?
Because
they
he
say
didn't
that he
realize,
got it very close, to this deal.
Fish, the reason why he didn't take the money, because he didn't believe that the way the NFL is going and the way it was moving, that running backs were going to be treated like this the year after. He thought that after the last year and after all these running backs were treated like this, maybe some of these teams would knock some sense in themselves and say, you know what? Let's give him his $40 million and let's party. It's only $3 million more than we offered him. I mean, seriously, all Saquon Barkley did was sit and wait, and he gave the Giants a discount last year. He did. He gave now he missed a couple of games, but the only way the Giants and Saquon Barkley was going to get the money, the incentives that he wanted, is if he broke over 10 touchdowns. I think it was like 1,500 yards rushing or something of that magnitude.
500 receiving yards.
500 receiving yards and something else. He was never going to do that after missing 3 games. So the Giants got him on a discount. So Giant fans are upset at him because he doesn't want to take a discount anymore, and he wants to make the money because he probably only has 3 more years left of good football. I'm not going to blame him for that. I'm not. And honestly, to me, if any Giant fan is going to mock him for that, shame on you, because you would take the money too, no matter how much you love New York. And by the way, he's a New York representative. He grew up a Jet fan. Okay. He grew up over there in the Bronx. So he knows a little bit about New York and how much the New York fans hate those Philadelphia fans. You think he just wanted to jump ship? And by the way, Brandon Jacobs loves Philadelphia fans.
Yeah, he's the only one.
Adores them.
He's the only one so far of all the ex-Giants that we've interviewed so far that have embraced the Philadelphia fans. Meanwhile, he wants to put explosives in Dallas Stadium.
Absolutely adores them.
I hate him. This is unforgivable to me. I'm sorry. I don't have to be rational on this one. This is my hated team. I hate them more than I hate the Red Sox in baseball, more than I hate the Islanders or Devils, Flyers. It's basically the same people. But, it's the worst. I was at the Matt Dodge, Deshaun Jackson punt return game. I was there. I knew it was going to be taken to the house as soon as he fumbled it and then picked it right back up. That they always run by it. I knew it was going to happen. I was halfway out, and I was talking so much smack to some Eagles fans that, of course, were in my section. And, of course, they gave up 21 points at the end, and I had to deal with it. I hate all Eagles, everything. This is I don't care. He could have went anywhere else. Even Dallas, I would have understood.
Dallas didn't offer him $37 million.
Because they got no money this year.
Yeah, but nobody was going. By the way, they lost out on a lot of running backs.
Oh, yeah, they're going to be stuck bringing back Ezekiel Elliott at this point.
My only joy is that they're going to suck.
Derrick Henry goes to Baltimore. He signs in, a $16 million deal?
Up to 20 with incentives, yeah.
It was $16 million for 2 years, which there are incentives, which could be $20 million. But it's probably going to be $8 million a year. So you sit here, they could have gotten Derrick Henry. They could have. The Cowboys could have gotten Mixon if they made a trade for him, but the Texans did that. They didn't have to give up much for Mixon.
The Packers cut Aaron Jones after they signed Josh Jacobs. Dallas could have went there.
The Vikings get Jones, Aaron Jones. I mean, there were a lot of good running backs available. Josh Jacobs goes to Green Bay. They could have gotten Josh Jacobs. There was no excuses for the Cowboys.
Austin Eckler went to the Washington Commanders.
Austin Eckler goes to the Commanders, which made no sense. Made no sense. But and by the way, what happens? They drop
Gibson.
Gibson goes to the Patriots. They could have brought in Gibson.
Yep. Instead, they'll just be bringing back Ezekiel Elliott at this point because he's probably the last one left.
They're going to draft. I mean, look, the Cowboys are going to find a way to run the ball.
What they're going to draft? They're going into a season right now. They didn't make any moves, really. They lost a ton of players. They're probably going to lose Smith one way or another. He's going somewhere. It could be the Jets. It could be somewhere else. Who knows? Smith is going to be leaving. So they're going into a season where they're worse than they were last year. And now they have a coach that's on a hot seat because Bill Belichick is lurking in the wind. Okay, that's what's happening right now.
Wow.
And Jerry Jones is licking his lips because if Mike McCarthy starts this season and he goes 1-3 or 1-4, McCarthy's going to get fired. They're going to bring in Bill Belichick in the middle of the season, and they're going to go that way. And by the way, I could see Jerry Jones stepping down and letting Bill Belichick take over. I could see that happening because that's the only way they're going to get Bill Belichick in that locker room.
And there's still no guarantee that'll keep CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott happy, too.
No, it probably won't. And then they're going to have to trade them. CeeDee Lamb. And by the way, CeeDee Lamb is asking for a big contract.
As he should.
Which a lot of people believe they're still going to give him this offseason. They're going to have to invest their money in CeeDee Lamb, who's one of the top 4 wide receivers in the league. And if he doesn't get it, somebody else will give it when he becomes a free agent next year.
Which they should do now before Justin Jefferson gets paid, too.
Yeah, because it's going to be a lot of money because Justin Jefferson is asking between $30 and $32 million, maybe even more with incentives. So CeeDee Lamb is going to get 35. And again, we will get into it as we go through every single roster, and we're going to grade every single team going into their trades in just a few moments. But right now, and signings, trades and signings. But you look at this situation with the New York Giants, I'm not going to hate on Saquon Barkley for taking the money. If he was part of the Jets and the Jets wouldn't give him an extension, I would understand why he would leave the Jets. I'm not going to hate Saquon Barkley because he's leaving my team because he's taking more money. You can't hate on a player that his former team didn't want to open up their pockets and help him. So shame on the Giants. They did make a trade. I was very surprised they got Brian Burns, but it was a great trade for the Giants. It really was. It was Joe Shane's best move so far as a GM until he gives them $150 million and $87 million guaranteed. He's making $27 million a year after next year. That's a lot of money to pay a linebacker. He's going to be the highest paid linebacker in the NFL.
And we were talking about it earlier, Fish, like the front seven now gets solidified, but are the Giants going to be able to fill in the rest of the team? Because now that's a lot of cap space that's going on this year. Daniel Jones is making the majority of his money this year because next year they could essentially get rid of him.
He'll be gone next year.
Yeah, they could essentially get rid of him. But how does that solve this year with the rest of the team? They're going to have to rely on a lot of late round gems.
And if the Giants are very, very smart, they should have given Daniel Jones some weapons this offseason so he could put up the numbers so you can move him and get something back, either a second round draft pick or a second and a fourth next year, because then you can move him and get something back significant instead of trading him and getting a Zach Wilson payoff, which is probably a fifth, sixth, or maybe even a seventh round draft pick.
Yeah, his contract this year is untradeable. It's a matter of if he plays plays enough this year, plays well enough, next year will be the offseason to move him.
The Chiefs made Chris Jones the highest paid defensive tackle in the NFL, signing him to a 5-year $158.75 million contract. Jones will make $31.75 million per year, surpassing Aaron Donald for the highest average annual value. Jones will get $95.3 million guaranteed, also the most guaranteed money ever given to a defensive tackle. Jones' contract is backloaded, making $28 million and $35 million the last 2 years of the deal, but making just $1.25 million this season because they're saving cap space. Jones had 10.5 sacks this year, 13 tackles for loss, and 29 quarterback hits this last season. In 8 NFL seasons, Jones has 75.5 sacks, 78 tackles for loss, and 175 quarterback hits. Chris Jones is one of the best defensive linemen in the league, and with this contract makes him the highest paid defensive lineman in football. Now, do I think he's the best defensive lineman in football? No. I still think Aaron Donald, Dexter Lawrence, Quentin Williams are better than him. Not by much. It's close. But Chris Jones is a winner. He's a winner. He's won Super Bowls. He was a part of those top-end defenses for the last 2 seasons. He's the reason why the Chiefs won back-to-back championships. He's the reason why last year, and I say last year because the season is over, last year, the Kansas City Chiefs were a top 5 defense. It was because of Chris Jones. Now, I do not believe if I was a GM of an organization with a 31, 32-year-old defensive lineman, I would have paid him this kind of money. This is Von Miller money. Look at where Buffalo is now this offseason. They lost all of their secondary, every single one of their secondary starters. They lost a center, their best center on the roster. They release him. He goes elsewhere. Their team is depleted because they couldn't pay anybody this offseason because they overpaid for Von Miller. Von Miller even took a cut this offseason. So the Buffalo Bills can save some money so they can move some of that money into players that are not on the roster that they're going to have to bring in because they're going to lose players because they had no money in their cap. Paying Jones this kind of money puts them in salary hell. You know why? Because now Travis Kelce just got money. Chris Jones just got money. And Patrick Mahomes just got money. That's 3 players, guys. There's no way in hell they're going to pay Snead. So they're going to have to move him. I don't care if they franchise him. They franchise him because they want to pick from it. Something the Jets should have learned from the Kansas City Chiefs when they let Huff go to the Eagles. But I'm going to tell you this right now. You look at where Kansas City is this year, when this team starts to age, and this whole defense will age eventually in the next 2 years, what are they going to do with that contract? Is he going to retire? He's not going to retire. So you're stuck on that contract. You're stuck on Travis Kelce's contract. And by the way, if Kelce retires, it's still part of the cap the next year. So then you have a year where you're trying to fit this guy in and fit that guy in and fit this guy in and draft this guy and hope that Patrick Mahomes is going to keep it afloat. It doesn't work like that. And Patrick Mahomes is sensational. He's the best player right now in the NFL. There's no question that he is. He is a fantastic talent. We know that he can win with anything on his roster. We've seen it already. But there's just so much he can do. It wasn't just because of Patrick Mahomes and why they won a Super Bowl this year. Their defense was amazing. It was amazing. Spagnuolo will have a coaching interview next year. No question. He's won 4 Super Bowls, 3 Super Bowls with Kansas City, 1 with the New York Giants. If no team gives him an interview, shame on you.
You gotta love. I'm sorry. You gotta love Chris Jones and the Chiefs, though. If you're a Chiefs fan, and it's too bad. You know, I want to give my condolences to Sean's family as well. It's too bad Sean's not here to talk about because he don't care about the salary cap. It's about three-peat, baby. I'm gonna channel him as best I can because that's what it is. You know, they're going all in.
They're not winning next year,
but they have to try. You know, next year. I think that's what they're doing. You know, if you're a fan, you love it. Is it going to mortgage the future for right now? Yeah, it definitely is. They're going to get jammed up with bad contracts. If they can get off of Snead, they will. If not, run it back. Bring everyone back. If they didn't really lose too many guys from who they already had for this upcoming season. They probably can fit everybody this year. After this year, it's going to be really hard for them to be as good as they've been. But again, can Patrick do it? It's really a very fascinating, really going for it mentality that if I was a Chiefs fan, I'd be super stoked about.
They're stoked. And they're probably going to be stoked all the way into the end of next season if they get eliminated. And if they don't win next year, then you're going into salary hell for the next 3 to 4 years, where you're going to be guessing on what you're going to do, who you're going to bring in, who you're going to drop. And this is what's going on right now with Buffalo. Buffalo is going into a season, they're going to be a shell of themselves. I am so happy when you hear Dawkins open his big mouth. He gets his extension. He wants to throw the New York Jets under the bus and make fun of the organization. He'll take anybody but any Jet, okay? And that's fine. Nobody wants to go to the Buffalo Bills anyways this offseason because they have nothing to play for. And I'm doing this, and I'm being very, very nice about it. I feel bad for Josh Allen. I really do. Because you have another year where you're going to be dealing with Stephon Diggs. Well, now you don't have Gabe Davis. Now you're going to have Stephon Diggs complaining that he's getting double teamed and he can't get the ball. So what are they going to do? You're going to hear Stephon Diggs all season long because he's going to have no time to throw the ball. He's going to be running for dear life. Okay. He has no guys, no game changers, but Stephon Diggs. They have really no running game. I don't want to hear about James Cook. Okay. Cooks. He's a good running back. The offensive line is not going to be the same. They just lost their starting center. It's not going to be the same. Their secondary, which was one of the best in football, is going to be one of the worst in football this coming year. And then you're in the AFC East. You're looking right now at the New England Patriots. They have gotten better. You look at Miami. They have gotten better. You look at the Jets. They have not gotten better. But nevertheless, well, the Jets never get better. They get worse. And no matter who's on their team and their roster. But nevertheless.
Don't worry. You're going to have Robert F. Kennedy endorsing the Jets now.
We'll get into the whole Aaron Rodgers thing. He's not running. He actually was on the Pat McAfee show. He said, this is not going to happen. So I don't know why you're making jokes. Even at the event I was at today, there were two people that were speaking, brought up the whole Aaron Rodgers thing. He is not running for vice president. It's great. The fact that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is a big fan of Aaron, they're good friends, and he puts Aaron on the list of guys that he would have as his running mate. Fantastic. Great. Aaron Rodgers is not running for vice president. He's not. So I just think it's ridiculous that that was the big story. We'll get into it because I think it's so funny how as soon as somebody says something, a candidate, and by the way, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is not going to win the presidency. He's not, even if he goes in as a conservative or no partied, okay? He's going against Biden and Trump. He's not going to win. So I don't know why anybody thinks that's going to happen. But nevertheless, going back to the Chiefs sitting here today, they have a chance to be a three-peated team in NFL history. No team has ever done that. No team. And if they do that, not only are they the franchise of the decade, they could be one of the greatest franchise football teams of all time. And Andy Reid, to me, will solidify himself maybe even better than Bill Belichick if he wins 3 in a row.
Definitely possible because Mahomes' contract also makes it seem affordable in comparison to other quarterbacks too. Now, it's still a lot of money, but like you were saying, Fish, it allows them to be able to take these other cap hits to extreme measures with somebody like Chris Jones, where Chris Jones can get all his guaranteed money later in his contract, but only make $1.25 million this year in an effort to try to keep Snead. And I think that's what they're going to try to do. I don't think they'll pay Snead a long-term deal, but they're going to try to at least keep him on the franchise tag if they can't get the trade value that they want. And I think that's why they did it that way. Now, it'll be interesting to see, like you're saying, Fish, if it doesn't work out that same way, then the money gets alleviated to the middle of that contract where it could be hard for them to build up the rest of the team. But the Chiefs have drafted well, and they've also brought in some good veterans later in training camp. We've seen this pattern with Brett Veach pretty much all the time.
Many NFL insiders mention that the Bears are not getting the perceived value they wanted and expected for Justin Fields. The projected market was a 2nd and a 4th round pick for him, but that market has been going down since free agency started. The two favorite teams or the two favorite trades for him were the Steelers and the Falcons, but Russell Wilson and Kirk Cousins were signed to those teams. The Vikings and the Raiders were 2 other teams in rumors for him, but the Vikings signed Sam Darnold and the Raiders signed Gardner Minshew. Multiple reports believe that the Seahawks would be the only team to give the Bears the value they want at this point. Fox Sports Craig Carton called Justin Fields a wide receiver for the Bears rather than a quarterback. Carton also called Bryce Young a slot receiver and not a quarterback last year. First of all, why is Craig Carton speaking? Okay, this has nothing to do with Craig Carton. I know he wants to sell his product and put his product up there with everybody else's, and he wants to spit some garbage, and he wants to believe whatever he wants to believe. Justin Fields is not a wide receiver. Justin Fields is one of those dynamic quarterbacks that can run the ball and throw the ball. The problem with Justin Fields over the last couple of years is the fact that the Bears have put him in the wrong position to succeed. They finally gave him DJ Moore, okay? DJ Moore is a good player. He's a good player. And by the way, Ashley, I just came from a meeting. I don't want to hear you that I'm a slop or whatever the hell you are. All right? I don't need you telling me what I am. The fact is, when you look at Justin Fields is not going to get traded now. I have a feeling now, being the position that the Bears are in, because they should have moved him a week before the open market opened. They should have traded him. Now they're not going to get the value, so they're not going to trade him. What they're going to do is they're going to hold on to him, and they're going to have to decide, are they trading out of that pick, or they're going to draft a quarterback, and then they're going to have Justin Fields and that quarterback playing for that number one quarterback position. That's what's going to happen right now. And then they're going to have to wait either in the middle of the season when a quarterback gets hurt, or at the end of next season where then they can move him. They can franchise him and then move him and get the value for him. The fact is right now, they're just in a bad position. And there are no quarterbacks that are needed on any of these teams anymore except Seattle. But why is Seattle going to make a move when they have Geno Smith? It doesn't make sense.
Right. And that's, I think, the best value for the Bears right now, because we saw how many quarterbacks got hurt last year as well. Like, that's the best value that teams are going to take on. Like, imagine if somebody like Justin Fields was available to the Jets. They could have just said, when Aaron Rodgers went hurt, all right, let's go get him now. Save our season before it gets worse type thing. There's going to be something like that. And at this point, that's where the market is going to be. I mentioned the Raiders as a sleeper for him last week. And the Vikings were another one that was interesting if they didn't keep Cousins, but it would have been hard to see if they would have traded him in division. But yeah, at this point, it's going to be very hard for them to get that kind of value anyway. And even in the draft too, and these other draft picks are going to be made, these other quarterbacks are going to be drafted. That's going to fill other holes too.
It doesn't make any sense. And the Bears really put them in a really, really bad position, put the team in a bad position, because now they're sitting there at one. Are they going to draft a quarterback? Are they trading down? Are they keeping Justin Fields? We did hear stories coming out from some of their wide receivers and running backs that they want Justin Fields back, and they think they can win with Justin Fields. Well, then are you going to ride with him now? And maybe you trade out from that first pick. You trade down 3 or 4 spots, add more first-round draft value, and move forward with a Justin Fields, and then lose out on Caleb Williams. If I were them right now, Washington sitting there at number 2, I would trade with Washington, because I think Washington wants Caleb Williams really, really bad. That's why they brought in Kingsbury. Kingsbury worked with him at USC. It makes a lot of sense. You can get an extra first-round draft pick. You move down to 2 and then trade out of that second spot with, I don't know, you can decide who maybe the Giants. Yeah. Maybe the Giants at 6 would like to jump up and get May. Then they could solidify their quarterback position. They're going to have a crappy year next year because they have no wide receivers. They have no offensive line, really. And they have Daniel Jones running for dear life because there's no Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
Good job to the New York Giants. I mean, seriously, this is crazy right now. If you're sitting here today and you're a Bears fan, you can't be happy with this. And the Bears made some good moves. We will get into that after our first guest. The Bears made some solid moves this offseason. But sitting with Justin Fields now, and there were teams and some of the executives saying they wanted to move from Justin Fields and bring in a Caleb Williams or a May. Now you're sitting here and you're wondering what you're going to do with him. So you might as well keep him. And then if you're drafting a quarterback, have these guys fight for that number 1 quarterback position. And then when a team loses a quarterback to a torn ACL or Achilles, which we saw plenty of times last year, then you can move Justin Fields. That's the only thing. That's the only value or thought I can go with the Bears right now. It doesn't make sense. So anyways, when we come back, ladies and gentlemen, we will be talking to former Packers, Panthers, and Seahawks guard Mike Wahle here on the Sports Loudmouth.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
This is Mario Andretti. You know me as a race car driver, but I'm also a Meals on Wheels volunteer. I've raced against the sport's biggest personalities, but I've never met more vibrant, amazing people than the seniors served by Meals on Wheels. As a volunteer, you deliver a hot, nutritious meal and a friendly hello to someone just like your mother, grandfather, or next door neighbor. These seniors are inspiring people with incredible stories to share, and they love to see you. The smiles you get back are priceless. Delivering with Meals on Wheels is easy, and you don't have to drive like me for it to be quick. You can volunteer your lunch break once a week or just once a month. With 1 in 6 seniors facing hunger and many more living in isolation, your lunch break can make a real difference. So, America, let's do lunch. Volunteer your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org.
This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. This is the Sports Loudmouth.
Six 631-672-3108 is the number to call. You're listening to the Sports Loudmouth. I'm your host, Errol Marks, my co-host, Speedy Petey. There is no Sean Smith tonight as he has had a death in the family. Go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Check out all our shows throughout the week, including the Loudmouth with me, Speedy Petey, and Sean Smith every single Wednesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. All you have to do to tune in and listen to all our shows and check out our local listings is go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. By the way, we're rebuilding the Worldwide Sports Radio website, so go check it out, ladies and gentlemen. We have our new page, the new Sports Loudmouth page up right now on the website at the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. So check that out. It's beautiful. It's fantastic. So anyways, we have our very first guest. We've been trying to get him on for the last couple of weeks, actually the last couple of months. He's been very, very busy. He's been traveling, hanging out with the fam. We are now talking to former Packers, Panthers, and Seahawks guard Mike Wahle. Mike, what's up, bud?
Hey, what's good, guys? Good to see you.
You look good, man. I mean, what's going on with you offensive linemen? You retire and you lose so much weight.
Yeah, 300 pounds is kind of the benchmark for when you retire, and then everybody either goes 50 pounds up, 50 pounds down. I got about an equal amount of friends that have gone both ways, so I went 50 pounds down. I don't sweat walking upstairs anymore.
I will say this. Sean has been on our show. Sean Smith, defensive tackle. He's gone up 50 pounds or something. I think he said he's
like I said, it happened. I tell you what, I see some friends after like 7-8 years, and you see, and they got kids and everything now, and you go, you got to pull them aside and go, hey man, you don't look so good. So it's tough. The metabolism slows down. The eating habits don't. I was lucky. I got hurt. My shoulder can't really carry that much weight, so losing weight was just kind of a means to an end a little bit.
How much do you weigh right now?
I bet you I haven't been on a scale in 10 years, but I think the last time I was on was like 245, 242, something like that. My wife hugs me and tells me how much I weigh, somewhere around 245.
You don't even look like you're 242, 245. I'm 230, and you're a lot taller. So I think, what are you, 6'3", 6'4"?
I'm 6'. Well, at my peak, I was 6'5", just over 6'5", but who knows that with this age, you shrink a little bit, but I feel like I'm right around there. And I feel like 240, 245 sounds about right. I got a big ass and legs and stuff. It's just up top, I'm thinner.
Yeah, well, you look good, man, and that's great, and that gives you a couple more years left on your life. I'm just kidding.
There it is.
You're gonna have a lot more years left on your life. As what are you, 42, 43 years old?
I'm 46, man. It's getting up.
You still look good, man. You look.
Well, I appreciate it, but
younger.
listen. Here's what happens. 50 is not bad anymore. Problem is 50 is only 10 years away from 60. So the next couple of years are pretty good, but after you hit that 50 mark, it starts things start looking a little bit different.
Well, I'm 41, and I'm not. You're only 4 or 5 years older than me, so that doesn't make any sense, okay? Because I'm trying to take care of myself. You're starting to make me worry, okay? I don't have any children yet, And now you have me worried. I'm 41 years old. I better be popping these babies out.
You're taking that European model, man. They start a little bit later over there, but life's a little bit different. Americans are trying to work themselves to death all the time. So I don't know what the answer is, but certainly I would say this: don't take the elevator, take the stairs. You'll be in good shape.
Well, I could be eating the fish and chips like they do over there in, England and France. I mean, but I'm not. I'm trying to stay away from. By the way, I had a fish sandwich last night. I was burping it up all morning this morning. It was horrible. It's a terrible feeling. I had to go to an event all the way to Manhattan. Woke up this morning and I had to run to the bathroom. So I don't want to get into that. It wasn't really, really good. My stomach was growling for the toilet. But anyway,
Errol's going to stay away from the entire United Kingdom island now. He's already wanted in Ireland, and now he's going to eat English food.
Well, he doesn't know why I'm wanted in Ireland. Okay, you could tell him why I'm wanted in Ireland.
It has to do with a feud with Conor McGregor.
Yes,
Oh,
I am.
really?
Yes. This happened years and years ago. It was like, I would say it was like 9 years ago, and the whole Nate Diaz thing, and I said something, and one of the guys from his team heard me say it, and he told Connor, and then Connor attacked me on social media on Twitter and threw me under the bus. Then I saw him in Barclays Center when he threw that chair right through the bus, and I almost got into a fight with him at the Barclays Center. So yeah, it's a true story, and me and Connor obviously don't like each other. I want to go see the movie Roadhouse, but it's not because of him. Okay,
he's a big fella now, though. Back in the day when those little guys are popping off a little bit, as a bigger guy, I kind of go, okay. But now he feels like he's put on 40, 50 pounds. He looks like a super middleweight or something like that. He could give you some trouble.
Well, he's 170, 175. That's what he's walking at. I mean, he was fighting at 155. He probably gained about 20 to 25 pounds. And they're saying that his up and coming fight, he's probably going to have to go down to probably around 160, 165. So he's not as big. He looks big because he looks bigger than he was. So I'm like I think I'm almost like 70 pounds heavier than he is. So I don't know.
I don't mess with those MMA guys, man. I know better.
It's going to be hard for him. It's going to be hard. I'm not worried about him. Let's get off this. Let's get off this. Let's go into the offseason right now with the Green Bay Packers. And the Packers had a great year. Jordan Love looked really, really good. 38 touchdowns and only 8 interceptions. 36 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. He was fantastic. Put up those Aaron Rodgers numbers where all the Packer fans are like, we have Aaron Rodgers 6.0. And I said, not 2.0, not 1.0, 6.0. This guy is going to be one of the greats, okay? And he had a great year. But their wide receiving core, there's still some questions over there. They're a bunch of youngsters. Watson can't stay healthy. And then this offseason, they added Josh Jacobs. They added some offensive line help. What are your thoughts to the Green Bay Packers, the moves that they made at in the offseason in free agency?
Yeah, so far it's been nuts. Like Monday is a great example. They got rid of the two kind of elder statesmen on the offense, and arguably, I would make the argument that they're the two best players that they had on the offense in Aaron Jones, and then obviously David Bakhtiari, who's going to be he's going to be a gold jacket wearer guy here soon enough at left tackle. So you get rid of those two guys immediately. Like the youngest team in football just gets younger, and then they bring in. They also got rid of A.J. Dillon, so their running back room is somewhat empty. The cupboard's bare. But they bring in Josh Jacobs from Las Vegas. And the guy's an absolute stud. He's 223 pounds, runs downhill, a little bit of different kind of guy than Aaron Jones. For me, I like the dynamic ability of Aaron a little bit better, but he was creeping up on 30 years old. He didn't want to take the pay cut. So that move really does make sense, I think, on paper. We'll have to see how it plays out. The guy did wear a C on his chest in Las Vegas. I think that counts a lot with Goody and Coach LaFleur. They haven't replaced Bakhtiari yet, and I don't know if they're going to be able to do that. Hopefully via the draft, maybe an early first round pick. And then on the other side, man, they brought out Xavier McKinney, which we brought in Jeff Hafley from Boston College defensive coordinator, and he was talking about I need this post safety, somebody that can erase part of the field, play at all three levels of the defense. So this guy has, for the Giants at 24 years old, he's already had a really established career. He can play 20 yards off the ball. He can play in the box. They send him on pressure looks all the time. There's some things from a coaching perspective you can certainly work on with Xavier McKinney, but I think it's a huge upgrade, obviously, for that room. And again, guy that wore a C on his chest. So some influential guys going into the locker room and at 1265 Lombardi, no doubt.
So what were your impressions of Jordan Love and of the young receivers? And do you think that Matt LaFleur kind of coached it differently than he did when Aaron Rodgers was there?
Oh, no doubt. Yeah. So Aaron Rodgers doesn't, you get to a certain point, and like Aaron Rodgers doesn't need coaching. I mean, every once in a while you can say, hey, did you look at this? Did you look at that? But he's probably calling half the plays from the line of scrimmage. I mean, this is a completely different offense. And I think for Green Bay Packers fans, you kind of got to see now, this is what Matt LaFleur's offense looks like when he runs it the way he wants to run it, not the way that Aaron Rodgers wanted to run it. That young receiving group. Listen, here's the great thing about the Green Bay Packers right now. You're still on your rookie contract for another year with Jordan Love. He's got that 5th-year option they locked in. But your wide receiver room is full of first and second year guys, and they're just absolute units. Like the guys they brought in this year, Dontavian Wicks, Jaden Reed, Malik Heath showed up, and then Romeo Doubs last year. Christian Watson's been hurt, but like he's actually not even the first option anymore because some of these other guys have played so well. You bring in Josh Jacobs. You have two rookie tight ends that played at high level last year. So you're looking at this group. They're all going to grow together. And really the only question mark is that offensive line. Jordan Love in the second half of the season was playing as well as any quarterback in the National Football League. I think part of that had something to do with the fact that Aaron Jones was playing at such a high level, particularly in the last 5 games. But Matt LaFleur established himself as a master play caller. I think he really made his bones this last season, despite having 3-13 in 3 seasons. You look at last year and you go, okay, this guy's a good coach because he went from really young team, inexperienced, not winning a lot of football games, quite frankly, playing some bad football. And with the help of Jordan Love and that young receiving core in particular, I think they really turned it around.
As everybody knows, we are talking to ex-Packers, Panthers, and Seahawks guard Mike Wahle, friend of the show. He's been on the show a couple of times, and we've been trying to get him on the show, and he's back on. He's been working, doing what he does, now that he's retired from the NFL. Aaron did not have much of a season this year. He went down in the first game after 4 plays, and everybody throughout the social media markets, everybody off the field, all these analysts, the press said, oh, he's done. He's not going to play anymore. He just tore his Achilles. He almost came back this year. What were your thoughts when you saw Aaron Rodgers going down the way he did this year? And then obviously trying to get back in this season. If the Jets were in a playoff race, maybe he comes back and makes one of those miraculous comebacks that we've never seen a quarterback make. Did you think that Aaron would have come back if the Jets were in a playoff race?
That's a great, medically, it would be unprecedented. It just goes to show you how stubborn he is and what a belief he has in himself and the guys that he surrounds himself with. For him to even have the option or the thought in his head that he'd get back, I think it was after 5 months. When he goes down, initially you think, and I think everybody's heard this before, the turf at MetLife is awful.
Horrible.
And guys are getting hurt all the time. And it immediately goes back to the NFLPA and the gripes that they have with the owners about, the surfaces that they're playing on. My first thought, honestly went there. But as it pertains to Aaron and kind of going through you watch Hard Knocks and you kind of fall in love with him again. I think regardless of where you maybe stood with the COVID deal and the Packers last couple of years, he just seemed like a really personable, likable guy, a good leader. He goes down, and then you kind of start hearing about he might try to make this comeback. Quite frankly, it's the only news that was coming out of New York. The Jets were such a bad football team without him. They're kind of fumbling around with that poor quarterback. But Aaron is he's a unique individual. He's, obviously a surefire Hall of Famer, one of the most talented guys I think I've ever seen in my lifetime at throwing the football. And if you like him or you don't like him, you have to appreciate the way that he marches to the beat of his own drum. And he certainly did that with this rehab and what he's been going through. So I think it's exciting that he's going to be with a good Jets football team for the next couple of years, healthy, and you see what they can do. They could be a real threat to particularly that division now.
Now, I'm sure you heard that he might be running for vice president, which I think is ridiculous. Right. He was never doing that. And he even came out on the Pat McAfee show and said that there's not a chance that he is running for vice president. He actually came out the other day on the McAfee show saying that he wants to play 4 more years in the NFL. So why all of a sudden is he going to retire and become the vice president of the United States? It's just ridiculous, Mike. What were your thoughts when you heard that story?
I got to be honest with you guys. I spend a minimal amount of time thinking about stupid things like that. I know there's just, we're all on sports talk shows and they have to have something to talk about, but man, I really like watching tape. I like breaking down players, like talking about the off the field stuff, the vice president stuff. It's like, I don't have a lot of time for it.
It's just ridiculous that even came out. And that's the press, and that's everybody trying to throw Aaron Rodgers under the bus because of the offseason. It doesn't make any sense.
Next thing you know, Woody Johnson will be some political scandal at this rate.
Well, if you were gonna say as a bet man, which one I would bet on, I think that would happen before the Aaron Rodgers vice president thing. But who knows? Wasn't Woody an ambassador for Trump somewhere? Yep. Where was he?
Yep.
Where
was England.
Yeah, that's
England.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I never know.
That's why I mentioned it. I'm like, who knows? Maybe Woody
Trump scandal, man. The guy's certainly got enough to go around right now, unfortunately.
So speaking of the Jets off season, we were hearing a lot of comments with Aaron Rodgers and Joe Douglas, Joe Douglas not getting his word out in the organization. Aaron Rodgers with bringing a lot of his guys, these ex-players, and Robert Saleh trying to keep him there when a lot of Jets fans wanted him fired. What are your thoughts to the drama that has come with this Jets off season, and how much power do you think Aaron Rodgers has in this organization?
Well, I think last year certainly you felt that when he decided to go there, not only with the hiring of the offensive coordinator, but then you start looking around at all the people that are showing up, and really not producing. I mean, quite frankly, and I think it's unfair to those guys. Allen Lazard was a great player for the Green Bay Packers. He did a lot of things, I think, off the football that really helped, particularly in that run game. What you have to think about, though, is you can't play this game at wide receiver without a good quarterback, and they just didn't have one. And unfortunately, Randall Cobb, they're not going to have the numbers, in particular because they don't have anybody good throwing them the football. So the whole thing looked a little bit worse than it actually was. Certainly, as you look to this next offseason and see what kind of power he holds, I think it diminishes. The longer you're not playing, I think the more that diminishes. And Aaron just seems to be, I don't know Aaron, from Adam, but it seems to be he's in a good headspace. It seems that he has something he wants to prove. You make this move to New York. You leave Green Bay. You have all these opportunities. They build this team around you. You got to go produce. I think he understands that right now. So I don't know that they're going to be big players here in the free agency. Certainly, you look at the draft, they're going to have some opportunities because of how they finished up the season. But really, I think after you look at shoring up that offensive line and figuring out who's going to be healthy and where they're going to play, you really got some good players at skill positions on that offense for Aaron to build around and kind of be a leader and a mentor too. I think they're going to have a good year.
We are talking to former Packers, Panthers, and Seahawks guard Mike Wahle, and it's so funny you mentioned they needed to boost up that offensive line. Well, they made a trade for Morgan Moses, a guy that they brought in a couple of years ago and couldn't stay healthy, but he had a pretty good year. The last 2 years with Baltimore, he's been pretty efficient as a tackle. So now they're going to bring him in as a right tackle. So they move him over there. So that gives Aaron some weapons, at least some weapons to protect him. I mean, you're going into another season where you had Dwayne Brown, who couldn't stay healthy. Mm-hmm. Elijah Vera Tucker, he goes out against Denver again. And you have an offensive line that was depleted once again with a veteran quarterback that's going to be 40 years old this coming year. Like you said, Mike, you need to give him that protection so he can make plays in the open field and get the ball to Allen Lazard and Garrett Wilson, who was complaining this offseason and throughout this season that he wasn't seeing the ball. My question to you is, you look at the position the Jets are, and you said they're going to have a good season, but you look at the position they are at number 10. Where do you go if you're the GM of the New York Jets?
Listen, when you guys signed Mekhi Becton a couple of years ago when you drafted him, my only comment was I've seen this story before where you just get this mountain of a man that can, his weight fluctuates probably between 350 and 450. I mean, there's a 4 in front of his weight at some point during the season. When you see him against Myles Garrett this last year, when you're that tall, at some point I think it becomes a disadvantage. And I just don't know, between the weight, between the health, between the amount of bend that he has to generate to get against a really good player that can play low. Like, everybody turns into Dwight Freeney if you're 6'9". So I think that's an issue. I like Joe Tippmann. I like Xavier Newman. I like Elijah Vera Tucker. But I think at the tackle position, you really need to go out and get a guy that, Aaron Rodgers had David Bakhtiari for the majority of his career. And when you got a guy like that, you call him a force multiplier, not only because of the job he does blocking the defensive end, but it's also the confidence he gives the guard, the tight end, particularly the quarterback on his blind side. So I really think you might be looking to go out and get a really high level guy. There's going to be a couple tackles at 10 or a couple really good offensive linemen at 10 that can add value to this team. They have a great defense already. I know there's always some plus minus guys in this free agent period, but if you're just looking like, hey, where can we really make a dent on this team? It's got to be offensive line.
So your other team, the Carolina Panthers, they had some dysfunction this season. Frank Reich gets fired in the middle of the season. They didn't want to draft. They wanted to draft Bryce Young. He wanted to draft C.J. Stroud, we were hearing. And they're traded Brian Burns. They're looking to get rid of everybody. What are your thoughts on the Panthers turmoil this season?
I have a couple thoughts because I think Frank Reich's a good coach, but when you see a guy recycle, like he gets fired and then before the season's even over, he's already hired again. Like that doesn't make sense to me. I feel like you need a year, decompress, do an evaluation of what went wrong. How am I going to make myself better? And just to jump into the next job, it just felt premature from the jump. And then you start hearing this stuff about if your quarterback, ex-quarterback, NFL, quarterback coach who developed a ton of guys in the National Football League wants a specific player. I don't know if this is true or not, but if they wanted player B and you chose player A, like who's making that choice? That doesn't make any sense. And you already hear about all the things that go on there with the ownership. And we'll see how that goes moving forward with the new leadership in place. Dan Morgan being the general manager, I think first and foremost, my ex-teammate, really happy for him. But last year, from the coaching staff debating on how they should use Bryce Young, should they be in the pistol, should they be under center, should they run play action, should they be drop? I mean, all these questions that start coming out after guys get fired. You know that there's only 8 good franchises in the National Football League. Everybody else is trying to stay afloat. And when you hear this kind of stuff, as an ex-player, it's not really surprising, but it is frustrating because there are guys in that building that are great football players. Frankie LaVue just moved teams. He was an amazing football player. Brian Burns should be a lifelong Panther. He's not going to be there anymore. They got rid of Hassan Riddick the year before. And it's just frustrating, I think, from a guy that wants to see those players do well when they're constantly put in this situation, much like 24 other teams in the National Football League, where it's just never as consistent as you want it to be.
Mike, they added a wide receiver. They needed some help. They had Adam Thielen, and they bring in Deontay Johnson, who really has not had a good career with the Pittsburgh Steelers. For some reason, this guy was a high pick, and everybody thought this guy was going to be a superstar wide receiver. And I drafted him back-to-back years in my fantasy, and he has given me nothing to show. By the way, I still won my fantasy league, even with him on my roster, by the way. But he missed a significant amount of time. What were your thoughts when the Panthers brought in a guy like Deontay Johnson?
Well, I think it's probably step one. And, my thought process always goes to who is the coach that is going to develop those guys. So if you've got what we would just call an underperforming guy, who's the coach that's going to be there? So I think Rob Moore is now the new wide receivers coach in Carolina. And, how much do we know about his ability to develop talent? Like, quite frankly, I've just not read up enough to know that for sure. But I always go look at that coach is going to see him every day, is going to be working with him. Is he a guy that can change that player's future? In other words, can he change his process to get him going on the right track? Because he's definitely a talented cat. And it's just a question of putting in enough young, talented guys around Bryce. Bryce Young's a really talented player. He got put in a bad situation last year. And then on top of it, CJ Stroud gets picked behind him and just plays like, an all-pro from the jump. So there's a lot of things that kind of make the optics look worse than they really were. He's a very, very talented player. They got to find the offense that fits him. They also got to put some guys around him that can grow with him. Much like we were just talking about with Jordan Love. You got a first-year starter at quarterback with a bunch of first- and second-year guys in the tight end and the wide receiver room. I think that makes a difference. You help these guys grow together. So hopefully Deontay Johnson can do that for him. Having said that, you're probably looking in the draft. You need to get another high-level guy, whether it's a guy to take the top off or it's a traditional like X receiver. We'll have to see.
So one of your teammates just got inducted into the Hall of Fame, Julius Peppers. Congratulations to him. What was he like on and off the field? And do you have a good Julius Peppers story?
So Julius is here's a Julius Peppers story. So you walk in and you know who he is. He played basketball at North Carolina. He just doesn't look like everybody else, quite frankly. He just looks like a better version of a human. He's an evolved human compared to everyone else. Makes you feel bad about yourself when you're walking around. But we're doing so John Fox used to want everybody to do a combine every offseason, which was absolutely asinine. But they wanted to keep tabs on how everybody was doing. So they would do a vertical jump test. And we had like an 11-foot ceiling. and they had to take the tiles out of the ceiling and stick the vertical jump, like, the little thing where you go and tap it. They had to stick that through the ceiling because Pep would just disappear into the damn ceiling every time he jumped, man. And we were just he would just do stuff like that. Like, we had another time where Pep was like, we were doing a 20-yard med ball toss over our heads. And at this point, I'm legitimately strong. Like, I'm NFL strong. I work out all the time. I could throw that thing a mile. I throw it like 20 yards, right? Pep is just talking to like Deshaun Foster, just having a chat, laughing, and flicks it like 26, 27 yards without even thinking about it. I mean, beat everybody else by like 5 or 6 yards. He just had that kind of like freakish strength and athleticism. And I think as he got older, because he was, relatively young when he came to Carolina in his first stint, but then you see him in Chicago, you see him in Green Bay, and you see the kind of leader and kind of more of a little bit more of a vocal guy that he turned out to be. Always a great teammate, but I think he added that element of maybe being more of a vocal leader as he went to these different stops. But there's always a handful of guys that you just look at and you go, well, that guy wasn't meant to be like an electrician, man. Like, he needed to be an athlete. Like, that's what he was going to do with his life. Like, that's what he was put on this earth to do. And Pep certainly felt like one of those guys.
Mike, you look at this offseason, do you see any of the tables turning now that some of these free agents are off the board? Do you look at the NFC right now? Is the NFC much better now that Kirk Cousins is going to Atlanta? Is the NFC that much better with all these different moves? Russell Wilson, obviously in the AFC, he goes from one team to another in the AFC. He goes to from the Broncos to Pittsburgh. What are your thoughts to some of these acquisitions? Do you think that the NFC is better, and do you think some of these AFC teams are much better now with some of the acquisitions they made?
Well, I think you always have to start at the quarterback position when you talk about maybe who's the stronger conference. And I think for me, first of all, you got Pat Mahomes in the AFC. That kind of wipes the table right there. But you got Aaron Rodgers coming back. You have Joe Burrow. I mean, the top 3 guys are in the AFC. I think the AFC is just a very, very strong conference. Kirk Cousins going to the Falcons. Like, Kirk Cousins is the best agent in the history of agents. The guy's got one playoff. I mean, he's a good pocket quarterback. I mean, he puts up some numbers. But as far as winning playoff football games, he just doesn't have that resume. And maybe not all of it is his fault, certainly. But I think when you get to be a franchise guy, the expectation is you're gonna kind of put a couple people on your shoulders and win some of those games. Going to Atlanta, how does that play out over the next couple of years? I really don't know. I can't recall how old he is now, but I just don't think Atlanta's in a position with, I think, the way the Saints are going to bounce back. Tampa's just still going to have something going there. I don't know if they're in a position to go and challenge for that division right now. We'll have to see. You see a Russell Wilson going to Pittsburgh. That's certainly an interesting move. I mean, listen, it cost him $1.4 million. Like, it's the lowest risk, high reward play in the history of quarterback play. So I think that's just a smart decision by Pittsburgh or anybody who wanted to pick him up who felt like they needed competition at the quarterback. I will say Kenny Pickett should be looking at that like it's a competition, not a foregone conclusion. You like to see all these moves. You'd love to see how much money now the salary cap is like 3 times more than when I was playing. And that wasn't that long ago. It's asinine. This money it's funny money. Now you're all playing Monopoly money, but I absolutely love it. I love the action that we're getting across the National Football League. I love to see the moves, and I love to see the way that these different teams, these general managers, these coaches are thinking about their teams when they bring in guys. Like we talked about the Packers before. You get rid of Aaron Jones, who's 29, 30 years old, but really, honestly, the best football player they had on the offensive side of the football when he was healthy last year. And you bring in a Josh Jacobs, who's a great player in his own right, and maybe better at some things than Aaron Jones was at the same position, but certainly a different style of player. And so what does that mean for the rest of the team? You see that up and down the National Football League. I think that's the fun part for fans, especially when you're talking about the offseason.
So you mentioned Patrick Mahomes. One of the big storylines this season was one of which was the referees. A lot of controversy with the referees and Patrick Mahomes, and the other one being the Taylor Swift effect on the NFL. What are your thoughts on those?
Referees, listen, it's hard to say. It's hard to accuse anybody of being biased, but gosh darn it, if it doesn't feel that way, if you're the fan of the other side, sometimes with some of the stuff that happens here. Certainly, I'll say this. The NFL is telling the referees that the most important player on the field for ratings and money is the quarterback. They've done that with the way they've legislated rules. They've done that certainly the way they've changed offensive football. Tom Brady had a great, couple comments about 2 years ago. It said they've made play worse because these guys don't have consequences for their actions because, defensive players get kicked out of the game for hitting somebody. So I think there's that whole side to it. Patrick Mahomes being the most important person by that definition in the entire National Football League, he's probably going to get the benefit of the doubt more often than not. No comment on the Taylor Swift stuff. Again, guys, like there's certain things I care about, certain things I don't. I can't even waste my time.
Well, we love you, Mike. Keep up the good work. You're doing such a great job. And by the way, you look good, man. I said this before we got you on the show. You look fantastic. And how's your family doing? How's your wife doing?
Life is good, guys. We're listen, I got 2 soccer kids, right? And my daughter's about to graduate high school and go off to play at Youngstown State. Really excited for her. Sad to see her leave. And that's just it's the time of life. I train athletes, and then I get to go home and train my own athletes, and there ain't nothing better.
Well, there you go. And guess what? You get to go home to your beautiful wife now, and you don't have to worry about getting killed on the football field. So there you go. Anyways, Mike, keep up the good work. We'll speak to you very, very soon. As always, when the season comes closer, maybe we'll reach out to you again and get you on the show if you're not too busy, my friend. All
right, gentlemen. Good to see you. Thank you.
Former Packers, Panthers, Seahawks guard, Mike Wahle, fantastic. Great personality. The guy's fit to do this. I'm serious. He could be a radio show host anywhere in the country. He's got a great personality. He's not going to take the bait. You heard it. He will not take the bait. So Taylor Swift, cut it out, baby. So
and Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
He wouldn't take the bait. I mean, seriously. We went from the Aaron Rodgers vice president situation to Taylor Swift, and he would not take the bait. He wouldn't. So I was very impressed with that, because usually somebody would laugh at it and giggle. Okay, I'll answer the question. Not Mike Wahle.
Or you'll be Kenyon Barner and start singing.
That's true too. I don't know what's going on with him. I think he's missing in action. I haven't heard from Kenyon Barner. So
yeah, I emailed him too. I didn't get a response either.
It's crazy, man. He's just completely disappeared off the face of the earth. It really is. I feel bad for our friend Chris, because he's got his jersey, and that's his father's jersey. So hopefully he sends it to him. I can't really do anything about it. But anyways, why don't we get into it? Free agency, and Kirk Cousins signed a 4-year, $180 million deal with the Falcons. $100 million guaranteed. By the way, and you heard it from Mike, all right? He must be the best salesman in the NFL. He must be the best salesman in NFL history. Look how many deals he got from the Vikings, the Commanders. I mean, this guy has already made $250 million off of 3 deals, and he's getting another $100 million guaranteed. I mean, he's the richest, I would say. I don't even know what you call it. No, it wouldn't even be the richest negotiator. I think he was the richest backup quarterback turned into a starting quarterback I've ever seen.
His tactics were so good that he forced the Washington Commanders GM Bruce Allen to go on vacation.
Just think about this. He was a backup quarterback for 4 years.
Right.
He was a backup quarterback for 4 years. He gets the starting job because RG3, his knee was completely depleted. Okay. He takes over. Couldn't get Washington into the playoffs until 1 year. They lose in the playoffs, and then he goes to Minnesota. He goes, I think, in free agency to Minnesota.
Right, the year after they lose in the NFC Championship to the Eagles.
He gets an $80 million deal with them. Then he gets another extension. I think it was another $80 million or $90 million. And with all those deals, it comes to about $200 million. And now he gets this deal worth about $100. The guy has made like $300 million off of 3 deals in the amount of 7 years? It's ridiculous. Yeah. He is the best salesman I have ever seen. It really is. And like Mr. Wahle said, the guy's only won 1 playoff game. He's a great player. There's no question. Oh, yeah. He puts up the numbers. He's sensational. He would have been the MVP this year. I really do believe that. Minnesota would have definitely made the playoffs if Kirk Cousins was healthy this year. Mm-hmm. And he put up sensational numbers. Look at those numbers that our Fish is putting up, our executive producer. 8 games played, 2,331 yards, 18 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, a 69.5 completion percentage, number 1 in the NFL, 103.8, number 1 quarterback rating in the NFL at the time. Torn Achilles in week 8 victory against Green Bay. His career in 150 games played, 39,471 yards, 270 touchdowns, and 110 interceptions. If you look at those numbers, they're Hall of Fame-esque. Yeah. They are. Now, I don't know if he goes to the Hall of Fame, he needs to win a Super Bowl. But if he somehow pulls off and wins a Super Bowl with Atlanta, which we all know what happened, what was it? Not too long ago. It was about 7 to 6 years ago with Matty Ice in the Super Bowl when they were up. I think the score was 28-3 in the fourth quarter, and then the biggest comeback in NFL history. You can go watch the dynasty with the New England Patriots. I'm going to watch the last 2 episodes tomorrow, but he's a guy that if he can get them to the Super Bowl again and win the Super Bowl, I'm telling you right now, they would build a statue in Georgia of him.
Oh, yeah. Between the Falcons' playoff nuances and Kirk Cousins' playoff nuances and primetime nuances that everyone likes to complain about, if they fuse together to win a Super Bowl, that would be something.
Yeah, absolutely. Russell Wilson signed a $1.2 million veterans minimum deal with the Steelers. The Broncos still owe him $39 million this season, so he's still making his $39 million, okay? He's still, so if you look at it, the kid is still making $40 million. So who's better than Russell Wilson? He doesn't have to play with the Broncos. He doesn't have to play with Sean Payton. Doesn't have to play with those players that can't stand him. He gets to go to another team, which he probably can ruin that locker room. And he goes over there. And I don't know if Mike Tomlin, I think Mike Tomlin can handle him and control him because he's a player's coach. But he goes over there. And by the way, the Pittsburgh Steelers gets a steal for a guy like Russell Wilson. If he has a good season, he throws 38 touchdowns like he did last year. That's so much better than Mr. Pickett. I mean, they're a playoff team. They make a run this year. I really do. I mean, their defense is shut down as there is in the NFL. TJ Watt is as good as anybody in the league. He could get at the quarterback whenever you want. He got hurt at the end of the season, the last 2-3 games of the season, he gets hurt. And if they had TJ Watt in that playoff game against the Bills, maybe they pull off that win.
As bad as Russell Wilson's first year with the Broncos was, I think he still had more passing touchdowns that season than Pickett's his whole career.
Yeah, I mean, with Russell Wilson, he definitely is an upgrade from a guy like Pickett. But Kenny Pickett, like you heard Mike Wahle said he should go into preseason and spring, whatever they call it, training camp, OTAs, whatever, and go out there and try to win the job from him. Because there's no guarantees Russell Wilson will win that job, okay? And Kenny Pickett, if he puts on some muscle, look at Aaron Rodgers. He tears his Achilles. I heard he put on like 10, 15 pounds of muscle. If a 40-year-old man can do that, you, Kenny Pickett, should be able to do that as well. And Russell Wilson's going in to the offseason knowing or thinking that he is going to get that job. There's no guarantees that he is going to win that job from Kenny Pickett. And Russell Wilson has got to prove something in that locker room because he didn't prove it in Denver as he got his own office as Sean Payton took that away from him. And he couldn't get along with any of the defensive players. He barely got along with any of the offensive players. And we all know what happened in Seattle. So,
and maybe that's why they traded Deontay Johnson. They had to make sure that didn't get spiral out of control early.
Yeah. So Russell Wilson was an interesting pickup by the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think a steal by the Pittsburgh Steelers if it works for them. Mm-hmm. Josh Jacobs signs with the Packers a 4-year, $48 million deal. They cut Aaron Jones, who signed a 1-year, $7 million deal with the Vikings. By the way, it's a fantastic move by the Vikings. It really wasn't costly. And a guy like Aaron Jones, what he did in the playoffs last year against the Cowboys, scoring 3 touchdowns in that game, it looks like Aaron Jones still has some stuff behind those legs. So going into the season, it's a 1-year deal. He's 30 years old. He's pushing 30. It's still a good move. It's still a good move by the Vikings. We'll see what the Vikings are going to do now that they don't have a quarterback. Do they start Sam Darnold, or do they draft a quarterback and they move up in the draft, which they can now? Because by the way, I saw what Carl posted up before, a little while ago, before we had our guest. He says, how are the Bear fans unhappy? The only reason why I say the Bear fans are unhappy is because they wanted Justin Fields traded. That's what I heard through a couple of my Bear friends saying that they want Justin Fields gone. And now Justin Fields might not be able to be traded. So now you have to decide what you're doing with that first round draft pick. Are you
Right.
drafting Caleb Williams? Are you drafting May? What are you doing with it? Are you trading down with it now and keeping Justin Fields and riding with Justin Fields, as we heard DJ Moore come out and say that he wants him back? Where are they going there? They have a new running back. So they need to decide how they're going to do this and what they're going to do. So, yeah, if I was a Bear fan, I wouldn't be happy.
Right.
I wouldn't be sitting here happy.
Right. The Bears still have to want to get the value that they can get with either of these trades that are going to come through. And there's no guarantee it's going to happen. And right now, the Fields trade seems like, based on this offseason, it's now on the downturn with all these other teams signing quarterbacks. Steelers and Falcons, like we're talking about, making the huge deals. I don't expect Sam Darnold or Gardner Minshew to be the starting quarterbacks for those teams, but it doesn't mean that they're going to have any more interest in Fields. The Raiders, I forgot they hired Luke Getsy as their offensive coordinator, a coach that he didn't get along with last year either.
I like Minshew. I think he's a good fill-in player, but I don't think he's a starting quarterback for a full season. I know he was for Indianapolis this year. Good for them. Did they make the playoffs? They didn't. So Gardner Minshew is a good fit-in player. He's a good backup quarterback, like as the Jets brought in Tyrod Taylor. He's a good backup quarterback. He's not a starter in this league. But if you lose your starter, he's a good consolation prize if you have a player like that on your bench. So I question a lot of different things, but I don't question that. I think Gardner Minshew is a good fit for a team like the Vikings. We'll see how it works. Not the Vikings,
the Raiders.
The Raiders. So we'll see how that works out for the Raiders.
The Vikings get the great Sam Darnold.
Listen, Sam Darnold could have a good season. I think O'Connell.
That's a good scheme, yeah.
O'Connell's a good coach. He's a good offensive mind, and I think O'Connell's a guy that can get Sam Darnold to play the way he wants him to play. Look, he played with Kyle Shanahan, and by the way, Kyle Shanahan and O'Connell are disciples. So, I mean, obviously, O'Connell's right under he was under Kyle Shanahan for years, and under Mike Shanahan. So he runs the same type of offense. So I think if there's anybody that can get Sam Darnold to play the way he wants him to play, it probably is O'Connell and Kyle Shanahan. And Kyle Shanahan did have Sam Darnold playing the way he wanted him to play at the end of the season. He played well.
Mm-hmm.
So Tony Pollard signs a 3-year, $24 million deal with the Titans. Wow, the Titans are adding some offensive pieces. They added Tony Pollard. Now they added Calvin Ridley. I mean, and they still have Hopkins there. We were just talking about how they had no offensive weapons. Now Vrabel's gone and they make this an offensive team. And they have a young quarterback that is going to be their starter this year. And it's going to be very interesting how prolific this offense could be with the talent that they have.
Yeah, they look at the Titans just not being able to draft wide receivers. They're going to have to get it in another capacity. Now, Tony Pollard giving him $8 million a year. He's same seasons 2 years in a row. Got off to a hot start, then kind of falls off in the second half. Can he be a little more consistent will be the question, because the Titans have a lot to fix with that offensive line, which was a big problem was a big strength for them for years, was a problem last year.
Derrick Henry signed a 2-year, $16 million deal with the Ravens. That can be $20 million of incentives. So he could make $20 million. I like this move by the Baltimore Ravens. They love those gritty and those north and south kind of guys. Dalvin Cook didn't work out. Does he come back? Do they re-sign Dalvin Cook? They do lose Dobbins. Dobbins is available this offseason if a team is interested. Maybe the Giants should look at a guy like J.K. Dobbins. I would bring him in. I'd take a shot with him.
Yeah, he's not going to cost him any more than probably $3 million, because he's had 2 straight years of major injuries.
Not even.
Yeah.
Or Kareem Hunt is available. Maybe you bring in another guy like Kareem Hunt, but there's a couple of good running backs still available. But Derrick Henry is a good running back, still has enough in him to go into this year's and this season with a Baltimore Raven team that's stacked. Lamar Jackson made some mistakes in the AFC title game that cost, I believe, the Baltimore Ravens a Super Bowl contention against that San Francisco 49ers team. But there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of questions this offseason with some of these moves, but this one was a good move by the Baltimore Ravens.
Right. And you also look at somebody that's been great in the playoffs too. The Ravens saw it firsthand doing it against them for the Titans. So they could have, if they got a little more success with their running game in that game against the Chiefs. Now, granted, they didn't run the ball a lot, but you have somebody like Derrick Henry, you're not going to get, let's say, carries a game.
Defensive tackle Christian Wilkins signed a 4-year, $110 million deal with the Raiders, and he got $27.5 million per year, which makes him one of the biggest defensive tackles in the NFL. Second to Mr. Jones, who just got a big contract. by the Kansas City Chiefs. So Christian Wilkins could be a very big piece moving forward for the Raiders. We'll see what happens. And we are going to grade we're going to grade every single move. Okay. So we'll grade each team and what they did in the offseason so far. So after we go through it, we'll start to grade them. Edge rusher Danielle Hunter signed a 2-year, $49 million deal with the Texans. Fantastic deal by the Texans. Gives them another edge rusher on the other side with their young superstar on the other. So I love this move. And again, the Texans are much, much better than they were last year.
Yeah, Hunter's been so underrated for so long. Now, the injuries have hindered him in recent years, but he's quietly had a close to 100-sack career already with the Minnesota Vikings. And now he's playing in all different schemes and had a great year last year, had 15 sacks, almost led the league with Brian Flores. And now he gets to be a mentor for Will Anderson as well, a young guy.
Ex-Jet edge rusher Bryce Huff signed a 3-year, $51.1 million deal with the Eagles. The highest paid to an undrafted player in NFL history. They're taking chances with Bryce Huff. I think Bryce Huff could be an every down type of defensive lineman. So I'm interested to see what Bryce Huff does. He was playing on second and third downs for the Jets at some points this year. He wasn't playing on first downs. Now he has a chance to play on all 3, maybe even 4 downs. So it'll be interesting to see how the Eagles are going to use him in the defense.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a little more, not in terms of the overall snap count that you saw the Jets get, because Josh Sweat's the other guy on that other side that had a great year, and Hassan Reddick, who it seemed like he wanted to be traded in the offseason, said those rumors were false. He wants to be back with the Eagles. So he's going to be using that kind of like traditional speed rusher type role, but now going into a 4-3 defense with all that talent around him, where not that he didn't have talent around him with the Jets, but the Eagles, they got all the depth in the world.
Robert Hunt signs with Carolina for $100 million, makes him the highest paid offseason move for the Carolina Panthers this offseason. By the way, I thought he was the best offensive lineman available this offseason, but that's a lot of money to take off your cap to pay an offensive lineman, hopefully. And he's a guard. And I've heard they're moving him to the tackle position. So that's taking a huge chance on a good guard, not a great tackle.
Well, yeah, that's what happened when Aquanu, who they drafted 2 years ago, has not panned out at tackle. So they have to move him to guard. So now you have to try to move somebody else to tackle. Will be interesting. They also signed former Seahawks guard Damian Lewis as well, who's been pretty good, versatile type guy, but they gave him a lot of money. So they better hope that they can keep Bryce Young upright.
Jonathan Greenard went to Minnesota. From Houston to Minnesota and he got $76 million guaranteed. So was it $76 million guaranteed?
76 overall.
Overall. So $76 million, $35 million guaranteed. So he goes to Minnesota. We talked about McKinney. He went to Green Bay. Leonard Williams is staying with Seattle. They gave him $64 million. Makes no sense. Damian Lewis from Seattle goes to Carolina for $53 million. Jonah Jackson goes from Detroit to the LA Rams for $51 million. I'm just bringing up the bigger names. The guy Patrick Queen goes from Baltimore to Pittsburgh for $41 million. Patrick Queen is a great linebacker, by the way. I was very surprised when I heard this. I really was. But boy, oh boy, Pittsburgh got so much better this year. They gave themselves a quarterback, and now they added another linebacker to a very good defense.
And they also, in the Deontay Johnson trade, too, they also traded for another good corner in Dante Jackson from Carolina. So
yes, they did. Darnell Mooney went from Chicago to Atlanta and got $30 million. That was a good. Darnell Mooney was never used right over there in Chicago. Now he's going to Atlanta with Kirk Cousins. He could be very, very explosive over there on the other side of Drake London. Yep. Grover Stewart, defensive tackle, stayed in Indiana for $39 million. Gabe Davis went from Buffalo to Jacksonville for $39 million. What a steal. What a steal.
Yep.
We talked about Saquon Barkley. Awuzie went from Cincinnati to Tennessee for $36 million. Let's see. So any more big ones over here?
Well, Fish has some of them up right now. Aziz Al-Shire goes back with the San Francisco scheme. He goes to the Texans, who he played with DeMeco Ryans when he was in San Francisco. That's a nice move as well. The Texans had a very good offseason so far as well. We expect them to build up on the
a lot of
defense
money.
they have. Yeah.
I'm surprised the Lions haven't done a lot.
Well, they did make a trade for Carlton Davis, which was a good move.
But they had a lot of money.
Yeah.
And they haven't really went after any of these free agents.
Yeah, I guess they're trying to maybe cater to the corner market right now because that's their biggest need first. But yeah, I'm surprised they wouldn't have gone after maybe one of those other edge rushers. I was thinking Hunter was a good possibility for them to go alongside with Aiden Hutchinson, who, by the way, led the league in pressure rate last year. You get a veteran guy to go along on that side. That can make your defense even better too, or even defensive tackle too. I'm surprised they had some good guys that overperformed for them last year from young guys, but still, I'm surprised they wouldn't have tried to fish into that market either.
Now, you want to start the grades. You give the teams and the players, and we will start to grade them. You ready?
All right, so we'll start with the Washington Commanders. They got Luvu, like you were saying. They got Austin Eckler. They also signed Bobby Wagner. They signed Nick Allegretti, who was a guard from the Chiefs as well. I like their offseason so far. I'll give them a B.
I'll give them a B too. I think what the moves that they made would grade them a B. Yes.
All right. The Tennessee Titans, Calvin Ridley. They also signed center Lloyd Cushenberry, who was previously with the Broncos. You mentioned Pollard Awuje and Kenneth Murray. I'm kind of in between with the contracts. There's still a lot of money, so I'm going to say a C+ for them.
Who are we talking about? Tennessee.
Tennessee. Yeah.
I'm actually gonna give Tennessee a B+. I like what Tennessee has done. Calvin Ridley. They added some offensive weapons. They're going to need that with a rookie, with a second-year quarterback. I like the moves that they made. So, but the question is their coach going to lead them to the right path? But again, with a new coach, a guy that took over from Mike Vrabel, there's a lot of questions there. But I like what they've done, so I give them a B+. All
right, so Tampa Bay mostly brought back their own players: Levante David, Greg Gaines, Mike Evans, Baker Mayfield.
B.
And yeah, I would say that too. They also brought back ex-Jet Jordan Whitehead as well.
Mm-hmm.
San Francisco, kind of small moves. Leonard Floyd, they bring him in his pass rush depth. Gross Matos, Jordan Elliott, really just bolting up the defensive line. We'll say a C for them.
B-.
We'll see what they do with Ayuk. That'll be the main case. Seattle, we were talking about. Bringing back Leonard Williams, and they also re-signed Noah Fant, Pharaoh Brown, Nick Harris. I'll say a C for them right now.
D+.
All right, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Saquon Barkley, Javante Parker, and they bring back CJ Gardner-Johnson. They made a lot of good moves. I'm going to give them an A right now.
I'm going to give them an A-.
All right, the Steelers. We were talking about Patrick Queen earlier. They bring in Russell Wilson, and I'm going to give them an A as well.
I'm going to give them a B+.
All righty, the New York Giants. Oof. John Runyon, I do like. Devin Singletary, Jermaine Illuminor at right tackle. Oh, Drew Lock, backup quarterback. For the Giants, I'll say a C.
I'm going to give them a B.
Because they didn't bring back Saquon, but whatever. New Orleans Saints, only one move, Willie Gay. Not bad. They didn't have a lot of money to do. I'll say a B.
I'm going to give him a C.
All right. The Patriots actually did a good amount.
Yes.
They bring back Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. Antonio Gibson they signed. I like Sion Takataki too, a good linebacker underrated with the Browns. I like what the Patriots did. Josh Uche they brought back as well. I'm going to give him a B+.
I'm going to give him a B.
The Minnesota Vikings, Grenard, you mentioned Blake Cashman, ex-Jet, goes to there as well. Andrew Van Ginkel as well, a good linebacker from Miami. Some good. I don't love the contract for Grenard, so I'm going to say a B-.
Losing their quarterback is huge. I'm going to give him a C+.
All right. Miami had to improve a little bit on defense. They bring in Jordan Brooks, linebacker from the Seahawks, and they brought in Shaq Barrett, who's not bad. Neville Gallimore, a good defensive tackle from the Cowboys. Anthony Walker. I like what Miami's done. Some good value. I'm going to say a B.
I'm going to give him a B.
All right, Christian Wilkins, speaking of Miami, signing with the Raiders. We talked about Gardner Minshew, and then Harrison Bryant, a tight end from the Browns. I like what they've done. I'll give them a B as well.
You talking about the Raiders?
The Raiders.
I'm going to give them a C.
All right. The LA Rams bringing in Jonah Jackson. They bring back Darius Williams. I like those. I think they'll give them a B.
B+.
All right. The LA Chargers. They bring in Gus Edwards. They bring in former Seahawks tight end Will Dissly and re-sign their safety Alohi Gilman. Good moves. I'll say a B.
C-.
All right. The Chiefs, like we said, re-signed Chris Jones, and they also brought in back Mike Pennell. Bengals tight end Irv Smith and then Deion Bush. I'll say a B for them.
C+.
All right. The Jacksonville Jaguars, you talked about Gabe Davis. They also signed Darnell Savage. That's a very good move. Mitch Morse. So far, so good for Jacksonville. I like their moves as well. I'm going to give them an A-.
B-.
The Colts. Joe Flacco brought in Jannard Avery, Tyquan Lewis. So kind of some small moves for the Colts, but they did bring back Pittman. That was big. I'm going to give them a B.
I'm going to give them a B too.
All right. The Texans, we were talking about Danico Autry, Daniil Hunter, Aziz Al-Shire on defense, and Jeff Okuda trying to rebirth him as a corner as well. A lot of good quality moves. I like them. I'll give them an A-.
I'm going to give them an A.
All right. The Green Bay Packers, you talked about McKinney before, but also lost a good amount. They kind of flip-flopped running backs. I don't really know how that's going to work. I'll say a C+ for them.
I'm going to give them an A.
All righty. You think Jacobs is going to work out there? It looks like. All right. The Detroit Lions, you were kind of talking about not doing enough. Marcus Davenport was their only free agent signing, and then they also traded for Carlton Davis. I'll say a C+ for them.
C+.
Yeah. The Broncos, not really much that they could do. Brandon Jones, not bad at safety. Malcolm Roach and little Jordan Humphrey. I'll say a C.
I'm going to give him a D.
Sounds about right for where they are. The Browns, Shelby Harris, Jordan Hicks, Jameis Winston as a backup QB, Naeem Hines. Yeah, so they mainly brought back their own guys on defense, kind of like we were saying with Tampa. I'll say a B for them.
I'm going to give him a C.
All right. The Bengals bring in Geno Stone. After trading Joe Mixon, they bring in Zach Moss, and they bring in Mike Gesicki as well. Not bad. I'll say B-.
I like what they did. B+. I like Gesicki with Joe Burrow.
Mm-hmm. The Bears, DeAndre Swift, Kevin Byard, and Gerald Everett at tight end, Jonathan Owens, the ex-Packer safety as well. Not bad. Solid moves. I'll say a B.
C+.
All right, Carolina. We were talking about the offensive lineman, a very high-priced offensive lineman. Ashawn Robinson as well, a defensive tackle who played with the Giants last year, played with the Lions in the past. I'll say a B-. I'm still not sure about the contracts.
I'm going to go with a C.
All right, Buffalo, they brought back some of their front guys, Daquan Jones, AJ Epinesa, and they brought back your boy, Carl, Mitch Trubisky, but kind of lost everybody in that secondary, so they'll get a C-.
I'm going to give him a D-.
All right. And the Ravens, like you said, Derrick Henry. I like Malik Harrison, too, at linebacker. Kind of small moves, but Derrick Henry's huge. I'm going to give them a B for that.
They lost Patrick Queen. I'm going to give him a C+.
And then Atlanta so far, we were talking about Kirk Cousins, that huge contract. We'll see if it lasts for the 4 years with the torn Achilles. Darnell Mooney, and also a couple pieces on defense. I'll say a B for them.
I love what they did. A-.
All right, and then Arizona is the last team. Just a couple
You
small.
forgot the Jets, by the way.
Oh, I missed the Jets. All right, we'll save the Jets for last then. The Arizona Cardinals, Justin Jones, Jonah Williams, a couple small pieces on defense. Bunting, not bad, not great. I'll say a B-.
I will say a C-.
All right, and the New York Jets you were talking about. They trade for Morgan Moses, and like our friend Mike Wahle was saying, they're probably going to bring in David Bakhtiari very soon. And so far, not much kept besides that, but we'll see what they do this offseason.
I give him an F.
I figured you were going to do that. I wasn't going to be that harsh, but it's the Jets. You never know.
I'm giving him an F. I give the Dallas Cowboys and the Jets an F.
Dallas Cowboys, yeah, they didn't do anything either. Yeah, the Jets.
The two teams, I've given them both an F. The Jets did nothing this offseason. I'm sorry. Adding Tyrod Taylor, that's a good move for them, but you don't have anything to throw to. Yeah. I'm sorry. I disagree with Mike Wahle. I disagree because they have no secondary wide receivers. They have Garrett Wilson and nobody else. And even with Aaron Rodgers, and he makes everybody around him better, it still has to worry you as a Jet fan because they don't have a second-round draft pick, so they can't move up and try to get one of these wide receivers. They don't have a second. Yeah. So unless they trade down and try to get that second back or whatever the hell they're going to do, give up a second-round draft pick next year to get a second-round draft pick this year, the Jets are really in a bad position because they don't have anything going into the second round where there'll be some wide receivers, maybe steals over there in the second round where you can make a move and bring somebody in, and they don't have it. So
all they really did this. So like you said, Tyrod Taylor, but all the other pieces were just mainly 40 ex-49ers going over to Robert Saleh.
That's what they did. And those guys went there because they feel that they have a better chance to prove themselves under Robert Saleh's, his spiel, his helm.
But Kinlaw was only there for 1 year. We'll see if it actually makes
a difference. Kinlaw was also hurt. He tore his ACL.
I know.
So, but he did work with Robert Saleh, and Robert Saleh probably talked him into coming to the Jets because guess what? He plays for the Jets. He has a good season with his defense, which he probably will because this front seven's pretty damn good, and they still have practically the same secondary with a guy like DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner, and it looks like the Jets are still, I don't know what's going on with Michael Carter, but I guess they're negotiating a deal with him.
I mentioned last week that I think Michael Carter is trying to test the cornerback market like he's an outside corner when he's a slot corner. I don't know that market is going to be the same way of what he's expecting because I think the highest paid slot corner is only making $10 million a year.
Yeah, so I think one way or another, I think the Jets are going to re-sign him. I do not believe he's going to test the waters and he's going to go somewhere else. So that's where we grade right now, the free agency market. But there's still a lot of guys still available. There's a bunch of names that are still out there where the teams like the Jets, the Giants, the Buffalo Bills, the Bills need a lot. Yeah. They need a lot of pieces, and they're going into this draft and they better hit home runs because if they don't, they're going into a season where they have a depleted secondary. They're probably going to bring in these these secondary players that are going to retire, and you're going to hope that these guys. Now there is Xavier Howard; he's still available. Maybe they can get Xavier Howard on cheap, but there are other teams probably looking at Xavier Howard. He's still a good player. So, but I'm very surprised that Xavier Howard didn't sign anywhere else.
Yeah,
So,
again, an older corner. Maybe they're not getting the market the same way right now, and
still a good player.
Good player. I think definitely not the same as what he signed with the contract. but
No.
Again, he's still a physical guy. Could be in that kind of Sean McDermott type zone type defense. Still could be a fit for him. I don't think you could expect him to be a number 1 type corner, but at least they need something. They need bodies.
That's what I'm saying. I would try to make a move. I would reach out to Xavier Howard. I almost said McKinney. Xavier Howard. I would reach out to him and his agent and say, listen, we'll sign you for a year. We'll give you, $7 million, $8 million. You come over here and you have a chance to play and be our starter, be our number 1 guy, So because the Buffalo Bills, even if they go into the draft this year and they draft a corner, they're not going to get the top corner. They're not going to get the second best corner. They could get the third or fourth best corner in this class. So you just don't know about that. You lose a guy like White, even though White is an injury prone player since he tore his ACL and then he hurt himself again. So we don't know what you're going to get out of White, but you lost Boyer. You lost a lot of
They also
players.
lost Levi Wallace
They
last
lost
year, too.
Hyde.
Yeah.
I mean, they lost they lost their best safeties. And now you're going into the season where you have nothing in your secondary. I don't care what Dion Dawkins says. I mean, if you're a Buffalo Bills fan or a Jet fan, who are you going to be more excited about watching next year? The Jets or the Buffalo Bills?
Yeah.
I mean, the Buffalo Bills have nothing, and the Jets still have defense. So the question is their quarterback going to stay healthy and they're going to be able to keep him on his feet?
They're going to have to nail a lot of draft picks with these secondary players because they've drafted well with pass rushers and linebackers, but they have not drafted well with corners besides White. And that was Brandon Beane's first year with the team. They have not drafted a corner well since then.
And by the way, yes, Keith, Miami is the team to beat in the AFC East. There's no question.
I would say so too. Yeah.
And watch out for New England too, because I think New England, new coaching staff and everything, I think they're going to have a chance. They brought Jacoby Brissett in. I mean, Brissett's probably going to start this year, and he knows the offense. They're probably running the same offense that Bill Belichick was running. So I think it's going to be. I think the Patriots are going to be right there. I think the Patriots could be right there to be a wild card team.
Yeah, their scheme is going to be similar because they also brought back a lot of their guys too. Owenu, who was supposed to be maybe the top offensive lineman on the market, re-signs with the Patriots. They brought back Kendrick Bourne. All they did was flip-flop tight ends. They lost Gesicki but got Austin Hooper.
So who's available? What free agents are available right now that teams could be looking at that they need to fill a role or of some magnitude? Where do they go?
Yeah, it's a lot of veteran pass rushers. It looks like Jerry Hughes, one of the guys that is available.
Not bad.
Dante Fowler, I think, is another one.
Not bad at all.
Yeah, that is available. It's an interesting market.
The Giants should be looking at these guys.
Devin Bush at linebacker is another interesting one. Kind of struggled with Seattle last year. You got Dewan Smoot, who was pretty good. Quentin Jefferson on that defensive line for the Jets. He got hurt last year, I believe. So I don't know what his market's going to look like. And then you look at a lot of these. Shaq Griffin, another corner that got a big contract with Jacksonville.
So all the big names are pretty much off the board.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of the wide receivers are now gone, like you were saying, and a lot of them re-signed with their teams. That's going to make it harder for them to be able to get the value.
Jonnu Smith went to Miami. I didn't know that.
Jonnu Smith. Yeah, they need a tight end. That's not a bad move. The Dolphins, that's the one thing on their offense, besides a couple interior offensive linemen, they were lacking. And that kind of thing they are able to fix, but it's a matter of Tua can stay healthy as well. Yeah, besides that, it's not really a lot of thin picking. John Feliciano had a nice year with the Niners. They let him go. Maybe
Eric Kendricks, is he available?
I think somebody just said that they
he
went to Dallas
yes.
with Zimmer again.
Yeah,
so
it looks like he went to Dallas, yeah.
Yep. Nathan also says Dante Fowler just went to the Commanders. Okay, so actually Fowler is off the board. Thank you, Fish, for that graphic. Ezekiel Elliott. Maybe he goes back to the Cowboys too, Nathan. They might need something at running back.
Mike Williams is still available.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's right. They just cut him today. I did say that earlier, too.
Yes.
Tyler Boyd. That's
a big
one.
name. That's a guy the Jets should be looking at. Mike Williams.
Yeah, because Aaron Rodgers does do well with big-bodied receivers. I wouldn't mind taking a flyer.
I would take a flyer. He's 29 years old. You're not going to have to overpay him. You could give him a veteran's minimum. He probably will take it. He'll probably take $7-8 million to come to the Jets. Also, the Giants. The Giants should definitely look at a guy like Mike Williams. He's a veteran player. If the Giants draft a wide receiver, you put him, you put the veteran on one side as you're starting. If you bring in Neighbors, or whoever you bring in, you bring in a Dunze, whoever you decide that falls to you and who you want to bring in to play on the other side, you have a veteran wide receiver that can train him and teach him. So I think Mike Williams is still a very good player, just can't stay healthy.
Yeah, here's the interesting one is the safety market. We were talking about
Jamal Adams.
Jamal Adams is another one.
He's going to the Cowboys.
Julian Blackmon's another underrated one too with the Colts that played very well. We were talking about Simmons last week, getting cut by the Broncos.
Allen Robinson's still available.
Allen Robinson could probably be a red zone type guy. Hunter Renfrow is interesting because a lot of teams are going to prioritize those slot receivers the same way.
Wow, I didn't know this. Buda Baker's still available.
Oh wow, I thought Arizona gave him an extension. Okay,
no, Buda Baker is available.
Maybe the Eagles will get their wish after all. They wanted him last offseason. Devin White. Devin White's an interesting one. Not a lot of veteran corners on the list that Fish is providing us here. Kendall Fuller, not bad for maybe a 1 or 2 year deal. Gilmore, same kind of thing, not bad for a 1 or 2 year deal.
Would you take a flyer on Michael Thomas?
I don't think
it's available.
I don't think it's bad at this point for any team that could use him as a 2, like a possession receiver. He's not bad.
The Jets.
There you go.
Curtis Samuel, he's still available.
Right scheme, I think that could work. I thought Washington might have been that would be enemy, but he really didn't have the same level of production. But I think in the right offense, right type of more creative type offense could be interesting. Maybe the Bengals, maybe have a replacement for Boyd could be interesting.
Micah Hyde is still available.
Yep. He'll be more like a zone coverage type safety at this point with all the injuries that he's
Kevin
had.
Zeitler is still available.
Yeah, I think the Ravens are saying, all right, we're not going to bank on an overperforming year because he's kind of flew up and down throughout his career. Maybe he goes back to the Bengals.
There are other teams looking for offensive line help. Maybe the Giants getting Zeitler back.
Yeah, that would be nice, but I don't trust the Giants to do the right thing at this point.
I'm just looking at the list right now and guys that would stand out. If I was a GM right now, and I'd take a flyer with him. Quentin Jefferson had a good season for the Jets.
Yep.
I would look at him. Absolutely.
Yeah, you got Jadeveon Clowney. That's interesting. DJ Reader, very underrated. So as any team that could use missed out on Wilkins could definitely
Devin
use
Bush.
That. Devin Bush. It struggled last year with Seattle, but it's been pretty good throughout his career.
I'd take a flyer.
Jerome Baker's another one. I forgot Miami cut too. Very versatile linebacker. Just struggled with Vic Fangio's offense.
Josh Reynolds, who had a pretty good season with the Lions, did drop the balls against San Francisco in the NFC title game. So a lot of people were questioning, maybe that's why Detroit decided not to bring him back, but he's still a good wide receiver. I would take a flyer with him. He's another guy that I would take a flyer with.
Yeah, it looks like a common theme for these wide receivers. They're either possession type, like more physical type wide receivers, or they're traditional slot type wide receivers. And then Curtis Samuel, kind of a versatile gadget type player who lost some speed with all the injuries, but still pretty fast.
There's still a lot of good players available.
The edge rushers are the big ones right now. I think that has the best value, and
who do you
Armstead
like
too. Pretty much everyone on that list. Ogba's kind of a rotational guy at this point.
Armstead's taking a very small contract. He's going to come and he's going to try to prove himself. I think that's where Armstead's going to. He'll go to a team in a scheme that he knows. So maybe the Jets could get him on a veterans minimum. Maybe
imagine he goes to Houston.
He can go to Houston. He knows that defense very, very well. But I think he's going to go to a team that he knows the defense. That's what I think.
Yeah, then a lot of those edge rushers, athletic guys. Jadeveon Clowney had a nice year with the Ravens last year. He'll cash in. Chase Young, we'll see how he is with the 49ers. He went to the 49ers, had some issues with effort, but then played well in the playoffs. So we'll see where
Did they sign him?
They did not sign him, so he's a free agent.
Chase Young stinks.
I mean, yeah, he's not going to be a first pass rusher anymore. I think we've learned that, but he's still athletic enough where he could be a well-rounded number 2 type pass rusher. And same kind of thing with
Justin
Clowney.
Simmons is still available.
Yep. Safety is the other big one because you got a lot of those guys that were cut. Eddie Jackson was a good one from the Bears.
Buda
Baker, like you were talking about.
A lot of good ones.
Eddie Jackson was cut from the Bears, but they didn't want to give him that price tag. They signed Byard instead, but he's still going to be valuable to a lot of these teams. Jordan Fuller is another underrated one from the Rams. Played very well.
Randy Gregory is available.
Oh, maybe you can go back to your Cowboys, Nathan. Even though I think he's pretty petty with Jerry Jones.
There's a lot of good players still available. There really is. If you look at the list.
Yes, Nathan, the Cowboys do need another defensive player in that secondary, and they have to make up that front 7 too. They lost pretty much their entire front 7 as well. We were talking about Gallimore before. He signed with Jacksonville.
By the way, Nick Folk, the Folk hero, is still available.
Hey, there you go. Back to the Jets. No, actually, they don't need a kicker.
Back to the Giants. There you go.
He
The
never played
Giants.
for the Giants, but
No, but back to the Giants. We'll send him to the Giants.
Yeah, I mean, the Giants don't need to sign any other expatriate players. We don't have that.
No, he was a Cowboy. Wasn't he a Cowboy?
He was a
Jet,
Cowboy.
Patriots.
Tampa had him briefly, but their kicker's pretty good. So they don't,
The Jets signed Greg the Leg. That was their big pickup.
right. Oh yeah, what a great move. I mean, he had a good year last year. He had
And
a
their
good-
punter, who was the best punter in the league last
They
year.
had to fill in their special teams. Very key.
Yeah, that's about all they filled in. I mean,
Or Miami. Thank you, Nathan. I is at Jacksonville. Yeah, Nick Gallimore, who I think has been a very underrated for a while too. We'll see. if
Jordan Whitehead's still available. No,
he
he
went
signed to Tampa.
He went back.
He
to
went
Tampa.
back to Tampa. Very good.
Back with the Todd Bowles crew.
Oh God. Oh God. Let's get it on. Let's get it on. Could you sing that song?
Let's get it on.
No, I want you to sing the song.
No, I don't know.
You don't want the song?
I don't know all the lyrics.
Oh, that's all right.
Yes, Bobby Wagner went to the Commanders. Nathan.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. reportedly approached Aaron Rodgers to be one of his running mates for the Prudential campaign for vice president. Kennedy is an independent candidate and has been talking to Aaron Rodgers a lot since he got hurt. Former wrestler Jesse the Body Ventura is also a candidate to be his running mate. This story is expected to bring more publicity both ways if Rodgers does decide that he accepts it. Rodgers or none of his representatives have not commented on this yet. Yes, he did. He was on the Pat McAfee show today, and he spoke about it. And he said that there's no truth to it. So I don't know. Obviously, if there's anything going on with Aaron Rodgers right now, he's not going to say anything. He's not. But I can't see Aaron Rodgers doing this, especially when a week ago when he was on, I think he was on the Pat McAfee show, and they asked him, how many years do you want to play? He says he wants to play another 4 years. So why would he come out and say that a week before, and then a week after go out and say, I want to run for vice president? It doesn't make any sense.
He wants to host Jeopardy. He wants to run for vice president. Who knows at this rate?
It doesn't make any sense. Any fan that thinks that Aaron Rodgers is going to run with John F. Kennedy Jr. is ridiculous.
He's also an independent candidate.
Now, he is a fan. They're a fan of each other, and they hang out with each other off the field. I think they play golf together. So,
right.
And that's great. Aaron Rodgers has a good friend who is going to run for president. He's not going to, first of all, he's going to be an independent candidate. And if he's running for an independent candidate, there's nobody that's ever won as an independent candidate. Yeah. So anybody that thinks Robert F. Kennedy is going to do that is ridiculous. Now, everybody says, don't say never, because nobody would have thought that Donald Trump would be the president of the United States. And now he's running again, and he has a chance to be the first president to be voted out of presidency and then voted back into presidency. So if he wins, he'd be the first to ever do that.
Now, the reason I brought this up is how much of a distraction do you think it is for the Jets? You don't think it is really anything, or?
I don't think it's. I think the press is just trying to blow it up more than it is. When I was at the event today, and there was two people that was speaking, I said, "Who would have thought that there would be a quarterback running for vice president?" And everybody started laughing, and I said, "That's not going to happen." So I know all the Jet fans are sitting here. Why is Aaron doing this? Why can't he just speak out and just shut everybody up? But Aaron loves the attention. This is what he likes to do. He loves to be the center of attention. So he as much as everybody thinks that Aaron didn't want to be on Hard Knocks last year, he loved it. Mm-hmm. He absolutely loved it. Cameras following him. Cameras realizing he's a good dude. He befriends everybody. Ralph Macchio was there on the sidelines. I mean, he loves being the center of attention where everybody wants to kiss his ass. I mean, he might as well wear no pants and no underwear on the football field. I'm going to tell you this right now. Half the team would kiss his ass. All right. Seriously, he gets hurt, and you saw everybody's face, even on the sidelines. Did you see Robert Saleh's face when Aaron Rodgers went down and he got carted off? I mean, I don't know if anybody remembers that face, but we should get the picture of it. It's pretty funny.
I'm sure Fish will prepare it by the end of the show.
His hands were on his knees and his head was down. Okay. Yeah. He looked like he was about to suck himself off.
And also you look at just in general, players that run for anything after their careers. They don't do it a year after their careers. We had one on the show.
Maybe he'll hang out with Zach Wilson.
Oh, God. I still think one of the
Well, hang out at that picnic, that barbecue. Maybe they'll both hang out with his mother's best friends.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I would love. I forget which guest we brought this up with. We were joking about the Jets, and we mentioned the random plot twist of, if one of Aaron Rodgers' exes starts dating Zach Wilson.
You know what's so funny? When you look at Robert Saleh, he's probably the prettiest player on the Jets team. Honestly, I mean, he's not even a player. He's the prettiest person on the Jets team. You see him walk around, he's nicely tanned. He's
got that glow on his head.
Freshly shaved. I mean, he's got a beautiful beard, dark beard that he probably dyes. I mean, come on, man. If you look at Robert Saleh, I mean, who's prettier than Robert Saleh on the Jets? Seriously. I mean, he looks younger than Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous. But again, the Jets are going into the season. You heard Mike Wahle. If the Jets could keep Aaron on his 2 feet, Mike Wahle says he's the third. He's a top 3 quarterback still. He believes he's a top 3 talent at the quarterback position, which if the Jets have a top 3 quarterback in the league, that says a lot about the Jets this year. They could be a dangerous team. They could be a team that can knock off the Kansas City Chiefs this year, or the Buffalo Bills, or the Baltimore Ravens, or any of those teams that some people think are going to be contenders in the AFC. So it's very interesting. I don't believe this story at all. I think the press wants to sell it. And even if he does run, okay, he's still going to play quarterback. And they're not going Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is not going to win the presidency. Right. I'm telling you that right now. He's not. There's no way he's going to win the electoral votes. There's no way. It's either Biden or Trump. That's where, and what's going on with that? Who's winning right now? I have no idea. Is Biden? Biden obviously won the Democratic vote, or he's about to. And I think I'm pretty sure they said that if Trump wins, I don't know where they were on Tuesday, that it's a foregone conclusion he's winning the Republican vote. So I don't know. I don't talk politics, but this whole Aaron Rodgers thing has just got me flustered. It should get all you fans flustered, because if you're a Jet fan, you don't want to hear that your quarterback is being brought up as the vice president of the United States. I mean, that's not something, hey, you know what? My quarterback is going to be running for vice president. Oh, yeah, well, good for you. I mean, seriously. It's horrible. It's not a good move. Now, there it is. There's that.
Yeah.
With the tears.
Fish didn't have enough.
Oh, but you missed the part when he grabs his knees and he looks down at his crotch. I mean, you should get that picture. It's a pretty funny picture.
Crotch cam.
Now, he spreads his legs out, dude. And Fish, you can come in. He spreads his legs out. I'll show you what he does. Let me do it. Let me show you guys what it is. All right, let me show you what he does. If I could get my mic out of the way, you guys could talk. Hold on. Yeah, I'm going to do
crotch cam.
I am going to do Robert Saleh's crotch cam. All right, here we go. Hold on. I'm moving the chair.
Robert Saleh crotch.
It's a live reenactment, folks.
Here it is. Ready?
Except Errol won't take receipt.
Ready? Spread my legs like this. Hold on. Oh, there it is.
Boy. Oh, boy.
You can't even see me. I probably, if I really wanted to, which I won't, you know what I mean? I could probably get to my crotch.
What sound do you think he made? Was it like a whimper, like as it was happening, or was it like a bunch of F-bombs?
I don't know what kind of sound he makes. I mean, I would have to ask his wife.
He was preparing his receipts in advance.
Yeah, I would. I mean, could you imagine, standing right next to Robert Saleh when Aaron Rodgers goes down, and you hear on the sidelines that they think it's an Achilles, and he just bends down and he's like, oh, I wish I could suck myself off.
Didn't like Marilyn Manson. That's like the Marilyn Manson thing, isn't it?
I need to arouse myself.
I don't know if Aaron Rodgers wants to get involved with Marilyn Manson.
Would anything surprise you today that Aaron Rodgers would get involved with, to be honest with you, though?
That's true. Aaron would probably do a lot of crazy things. Definitely suck himself off. That's for sure, if he could. But I will say this. Marilyn Manson did actually, I think he took one of his ribs out so he can do it. Something like that.
I think that's the story, that he was able to do that or something.
Could you imagine that? Speedy, Would you take?
We all
one
have
of those out
dreams,
if
you
could
know.
Suck yourself off?
No.
Why?
That does not seem worth
I
it.
think obviously it doesn't seem worth it, but if you could please yourself, then you don't have to worry about anybody else.
I don't think that'd be worth the pain and whatever else would have to go through to
I don't even
get rid of somebody's rib.
I don't even think Robert Saleh needs to do that. He just has to spread his legs out.
Robert Saleh might be building enough muscle where he'll just pop his rib out on his own.
Oh man, that's pretty funny actually. But I how many times did we see Robert Saleh like grabbing his knees on the sidelines and looking down like he was going to, he was gonna like cut wind or something,
Yeah, the other funny ones are always those pictures of these other coaches that try to make sure that these coaches don't fall. The coaches that are holding them from behind. Mike Tomlin was jokingly having one. I think Sean McVay has one, and then Robert Saleh had one.
I think Nithin was trying to get on, Speedy.
Our guest is at 10:30. You want to wait for tomorrow for him, or
Nithin, we'll get you on tomorrow. Yeah, because I want to apologize for all the fans. I've been dead tired for this show, and tomorrow I'm not staying at the event too long. I'm going to go for probably 2 or 3 hours, and then I'm coming home. So we might even start the show at 7:00 tomorrow.
Well, Stephen Pappas is on at 10. So
all right, that's fine.
Start at
That's
8
fine.
still, or?
That's fine.
Okay.
We'll figure it out. But
Okay.
I don't care if Pappas is on at 10. Okay, so whatever. To me, I'm not staying for the whole thing tomorrow. There's no way. I am dead tired. I woke up this morning at 5:00 in the morning. 5:00 in the morning. Got on the train at 5:45. Didn't get to the city till 7:20. Then I had to get an Uber. Then I was stuck in traffic. I didn't get there till 8:10. And then I had to go to the bathroom. I had to get my thing. By the time it started at 9:00, that was horrible. I got to do it again tomorrow. I'm going to tell you this right now. I am not staying there for the whole thing. There will not be. I will probably stay till noon, and then I'm leaving. I will stay for a couple hours, and then I'm going home. All right. So that's my deal for that event.
There's only so much Stephen A. Smith you could hear.
Well, Stephen A. Smith was actually really, really good.
Oh, wow.
He was really, really good. As a matter of fact, he was up there for 30 minutes. He was the final speaker at the event, and he was fantastic. He really was. I got to give him props on that. He spoke very intelligently. I mean, very cocky. I will tell you this about Stephen A. Smith. He sincerely believes he's the greatest of all time, the best of the best, and nobody can touch him. So, and I give him a lot of credit for it, but he gave so much good advice to all the people, all the broadcasters that were there, all the producers, all the people that are interested to hear what he had to say. And he was fantastic. Every single person. And he said, which was crazy to me, is it was going over the time. He says, I'll take 3 or 4 more. I will take 3 or 4 more questions if you want me to. He was pretty open to answering all the questions, but the questions took forever. He was answering them. It was like paragraph after paragraph after paragraph. I was like, could you just answer the damn question and give us the answer? Jesus. I mean, seriously, I like Stephen A. Smith. I like, okay, I'm going to take that back. I'm going to take that back. I like him as a personality. Okay. I don't like how he uses his cockiness to take over shows. Okay. I don't like that. I don't like that. That's one of the reasons why I don't like Steph Curry. That's one of the reasons why I don't like Conor McGregor. That's another reason why I've argued my point at some other athletes over the last couple of years. I'm not going to mention all of them because I don't want to get anybody more pissed off than they are probably at me right now, okay? Because there's about 1 million people that love Stephen A. Smith. And I'm not saying I don't like Stephen A. Smith. I think he's a good person to look up to when it comes to radio and television, because he's succeeded all those expectations in the past, where some people probably thought he was crazy to believe that he was going to be where he is today. But so I'm not going to take shots at him on that, but he was the biggest speaker there today. And there was a lot of good speakers. There was the sensational speakers, people that run the sports industry when it comes to radio. I saw managers, I saw branches, all different guys, producers. And if I had the list of people that you want me to get no, I'm not going into my car.
Who is the most interesting person, do you think, besides Stephen A. that you saw?
Who was the most interesting? Paul Heyman.
Oh, Paulie Dangerously.
Paul Heyman was there, and I'm not a wrestling fan, but he was one of the big speakers. Michael Kay spoke. Michael Kay was there, and Rosenberg was there. They were pretty good. Again, taking shots at Mike Francesa, as they always do. I mean, just pretty much throwing and showing video of Don LaGreca screaming into a mic and going crazy. So that's always interesting. So they were good. I think it was Paul Heyman and Stephen A. Smith. They were the two best ones, but there were a lot of good ones. There were a lot of good ones. We saw, industry conglomerates that run the ESPN. I saw two very big wigs, for ESPN and WFAN. Spike Gaskin spoke, a guy that I spoke to years and years ago about working for WFAN, and he wasn't so bad either. I mean, it doesn't seem like that bad of a guy either. So, when I look at these guys, I honestly, I respect what they have done in the industry, but they didn't get where they were if they didn't know somebody. Okay. I'm sorry. I don't believe anything. Yes, you have to work. You have to. But Stephen A. Smith admitted it. He admitted it. He says, I wouldn't be here today if I didn't have some help on the outside. He said that. But he said, if you can get that help on the outside, it'll definitely give you a boost to be really successful in this industry. You need help. You can't do it all yourself. So, and he's right. He was the first person to admit that, because a lot of these guys would probably take charge and say, I did it myself. I didn't need anybody. So this is an egotistical business. Okay. That's what it is. There's a lot of egos in this business. And that's what I saw today. I sit there and honestly, I sat there and I listened, and I have a lot of respect for everybody that spoke there, because there were a lot of great speakers there. A lot of people that in the industry that are very well respected around the country for Odyssey and ESPN and CBS Sports Radio and Fox Sports. They were all there. They were all hanging out in the audience too, and they all and a lot of them spoke. And I have to give them the respect that they deserve. But if they're going to go out there and tell me that they didn't get help to get where they were, that's a lie. And Stephen A. Smith practically brought that up. He said it. He's like, if somebody's going to come out here and tell me that they became who they became without any help, that would be a lie. And he says, I had a lot of help to get where I am today, and that's why I'm the best in the business, and that's why everybody wants me to be on their show. That's why. And he even came out and said this before we get to our second guest, that Jimmy Kimmel is probably going to retire next year. And he said one of the guys from the audience asked him the question, because he actually did the Jimmy Kimmel show. He actually hosted Jimmy Kimmel's show this past year, and there was like 1.4 million people that watched it, or some weird crazy number. He said, and the guy asked him, would you take, if it was offered to you, would you take Jimmy Kimmel's position? And he absolutely said that he would. So he definitely has a thought in it. If Jimmy Kimmel or any, what is it, NBC or ABC offers him the job, he might take it. So very interesting. By the way, ABC is an ESPN company, and Disney company. So it wouldn't be crazy to see Stephen A. Smith hosting the Tonight Show. So I'm just
that's wild.
Isn't that wild? Isn't that crazy? It is crazy. He was great. I'm not going to take shots at him today, because I thought he was fantastic. He answered every question. He gave so much good information. If you're a radio fan or a television fan, Stephen A. Smith really, 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 really gave a great, and wasn't commercial, by the way. It was perfect. It was right from the heart. Everybody said it out in the audience. They said, this is fantastic. So he was as good as anybody. And so was Paul Heyman. I think he was very honest.
2024 WWE Hall of Fame, Hall of Famer, Paul Heyman.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he mentioned that too. And he says, I don't know why they're inducting me into the Hall of Fame. He says, I'm not going anywhere. So I have a lot more.
That's great.
He says, I have a lot more to prove in this industry, and I plan to do a lot more in this industry. I don't know why they're retiring me already, but
his story is great. He's from the islands. He started out. He's the one that, he's with WCW for a while, like back and forth, doing a bunch, whatever he could to make it. And then he ends up kind of getting on the outs with him, and he starts ECW in Philly. And ECW becomes this cult phenomenon, and it kind of is a launching pad for him, as far as I know.
He tells the whole story.
That's so cool. I would have loved that story,
That 6 o'clock spot, and he said that it was open and nobody wanted it, and it was the perfect time because there was no Philadelphia games. So he says it was the perfect spot to get all the Philadelphia fans to watch it. And he says he mentioned the Extreme name, and he says that name Extreme was going to be used one way or another, Extreme Tacos or whatever. He was like Extreme, and he was making jokes about it. He says, I took the name and made Extreme Championship Wrestling. So, and I'm not a wrestling fan anymore. So he was very intriguing, very interesting. Both guys, all the people, all the speakers at the event were very, very interesting. I just think it's a lot to travel to the city, go wake up in the morning, do all that stuff, take an Uber. It was horrible. And now I'm doing a radio show. I don't even know how I have the energy. I went from 5 o'clock in the morning, and now it's 10:30 at night, and I have to do the same thing tomorrow. It's crazy. I don't even know how I'm doing this show. I should be on fumes. People don't understand how I have this energy. I don't even know how I have this energy. I'm going to break down. Before we bring in Dave Sims, I might have a heart attack. Okay? It's ridiculous. I'm just like drawn. Okay? I am drawn. Maybe I'm PMSing or something. I don't know. When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be talking to Seattle Mariners TV play-by-play broadcaster for the first time on the Sports Loudmouth, Dave Sims, here on the Sports Loudmouth.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Take a look under your bed. Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your basement. There's a pair of overalls that overall you're not so into anymore. A perfectly good laptop that hasn't sat in your lap in months. And even more stuff, but still no jobs? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed. And they're the stuff inside your stuff. Even inside that winter coat that moved with you to Phoenix. Our job is to unlock those jobs. And it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover guitar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs. Find your nearest donation center at goodwill.org. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. This is the Sports Loudmouth.
All right, I'm getting ready to go on here.
631-672-3108 is the number to call. You're listening to the Sports Sleepyheads. I'm just kidding. I'm about to fall asleep. I'm just kidding. Sports Loudmouth. I'm your host, Errol Marks. Speedy Petey. Go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Check out all our shows throughout the week, including the Loudmouth with me, Speedy Petey, and ex-NFL player Sean Smith every single Wednesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. All you have to do to tune in and check out your local listings is go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. We had Mike Wahle on a little bit earlier. He's been on a show before, but this guy has never been on the Sports Loudmouth. I can't wait to introduce him because I'm sure he's probably going to think we're nuts after this interview. We are now talking to Seattle Mariners TV play-by-play broadcaster Dave Sims. Dave, what's up, bud?
Well, we're doing all right, guys. What's going on? How you doing?
Well, I'm a little tired, man.
Stop it.
Dave,
Stop
I'm
it.
fumes, man.
Stop it. You got first world problems. You got a radio show. You're complaining about being tired. Just stop.
I'm tired, Dave.
Who is it? Hey, do 190 baseball games. I mean, nobody wants to hear that.
Listen. If you gave me 90 baseball games and I was getting paid for it, I'd be, yes, give it to me. Give me those 190 baseball games.
Dude, you're doing something that you love. Stop it.
I know, Dave. I know. But I'm tired. I went to an event. I had to travel.
I said that one time to Tommy Lasorda during a Super Bowl week one time. And the Giants' first Super Bowl. And this was before Radio Row really exploded.
Yes.
And I was out there in a drafty hallway, and Tommy came in. We invited him. And I said, hey, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And then some fans came walking by. They were coming in from New York, and it snowed like crazy. And, hey, how you feeling? I said, a little bit run down. And Tommy Lasorda says, you got one of the best effing jobs in the world. You're good at it. Shut up.
Listen. Who said I'm good at what I do? You don't even know me yet. Dave, you don't even know me. You're already saying I'm great.
That you're clear. Where are you from? You got to be. You're from somewhere on I-95 between Philly and New York, aren't you?
I'm Long Island, New York.
All right, Long Island, same thing. Yeah, that's what I figured. All right, no, I know. I'm a Philly, New York guy. I know a whole bunch of guys. You know, I dig the energy.
Listen,
I'm familiar with it.
I have some energy, man. I do. I mean, so much energy. When I'm done with the show, I'm going to jump, not dive. I'm going to jump into bed with the covers on top of me. I'm just kidding. I got to take a shower first. Anyways.
I would hope.
Yeah, well, I hope too, man. I'm sweaty and disgusting. Anyways, that's why I'm not wearing my shirt. I was wearing a sweater all day. I was sweating in this plate. It was horrible. Anyways, why don't we get into it? This offseason, it's been crazy. Some big moves. The Yankees added Juan Soto. What were your thoughts of the Yankees' acquisition of Juan Soto?
Not hardly a shock. I mean, he's a Boris guy. It's a good situation for him. And the guy, he's one of the best hitters we have in the game. So, given the history of the Yankees over the years, going after big names, big stars, hardly a surprise at all.
So your division had a lot of interesting storylines between the Texas Rangers winning the World Series, the Astros with everything they did in the offseason, and the Seattle Mariners. They give Julio Rodriguez that big contract. What are your thoughts to the rivalries that we've seen in this division that's come through?
They're intense. I mean, the Mariners missed by one stinking game last year. They were heartbroken to see Texas and Houston battling for the American League pennant, and knowing that they more than held their own against those two teams last year. And this year they made some moves. They got rid of some guys who did a lot of striking out: Teoscar Hernandez and Eugenio Suarez and Jared Kelenic. Three really good dudes, but it's all about productivity. And I think this year's team is a lot more balanced, deep. And it has more guys that will put the ball in play to go on with a terrific pitching staff.
We are talking to Seattle Mariners TV play-by-play broadcaster Dave Sims. Dave, Julio Rodriguez is one of the best power hitters in baseball, one of the best young players in baseball. Tell us a little bit about watching him in 162 games in a season. He is a fantastic talent. What type of player is he?
Well, he's a combination, power, speed. 6'3", 235. He can run. He covers gap to gap in the outfield. Plays with tremendous enthusiasm, hits the ball hard. When he's going good, he learned a lot out of his coming out of his September slump after just a magnificent August last year when the club won 21 games, a club record. And he is fully committed this year. He missed the first few games of spring training because they had a little hand problem with the left hand. I think a lot of it was from overwork and being so hungry. To get ready for the season. He's going to be fine. He is. I always say that he plays with the joy of Amazing and Clemente, and he's bigger than both of them in terms of physicality. I mean, he's a big physical kid and good throwing arm, great baseball sense. He makes a mistake, you rarely see it made again. He's a real deal.
So being in the AL West, you got to broadcast the Mariners against the Angels a lot with Shohei Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani wins 2 of the last 3 years MVP, and then he gets the big contract in the offseason. What is it like broadcasting him as a two-way player?
It's a treat, and we'll see him in August when we play at the Dodgers. He is a memorable player, to put it mildly. I mean, when he's pitching. He's throwing 100 with a 6.6 splitter and slider, and then he can hit the ball 400 feet. So it's a real treat to watch him, and I feel badly for people on the East Coast who, if you want to stay up late and watch, it's worth it. But a lot of people, just like Ichiro was back in the day, it's just the name and maybe some highlights you see on SportsCenter or MLB. But he is a dynamic player, and if he can stay healthy, he's coming. Obviously, he's not going to pitch this year, but he has the potential to put up just stupid numbers. So, and here's the other thing too that we don't talk about a lot. He's as fast a runner as we have in baseball. I mean, he's a beautiful runner. I remember asking his interpreter. I said, "Did he run the 400 meters in high school?" He said he never did, but he runs. He just eats up so much real estate when he runs. He's got the great lean when he comes around second base. I mean, he looks like he's been doing this professionally. Just as a runner, he's that good an athlete.
It's so interesting. We look at Shohei Ohtani, we look at the Dodgers, and the Dodgers like to spend money, as we all know. They paid Mookie Betts. They went after Freeman. Now they bring in Yamamoto and Ohtani. This deferred money. Now you're hearing Freeman has deferred money. You have Mookie Betts who has deferred money. You have Ohtani, Yamamoto. I mean, what is up with this deferred money? It's been around baseball for a long time, and now I guess the Dodgers have perfected it. Do you like this situation right now that baseball has when it comes to this deferred money situation?
Hey, Tom Brady did it over in the NFL for a lot of years. A lot of guys are doing it. Mahomes just did it in the NFL. Smart way to help your ball club and keep some money available. The way the Dodgers operate, it seems like they have a bottomless pit in terms of money, and they do have some group. That Guggenheim partnership is really spectacular. There's no question about it. They're super aggressive, and they get after it, and they're in a major market. So I'm not beefing about it. They're not breaking any rules, and that's rules allow that to happen, and they take advantage of it. I don't see anything to get upset over. It's and they're not going to have a cap and salary cap in baseball. So they're big boys, just like when the Yankees were rolling, during their runs over the last 35, 40 years.
So MLB this year went through a lot of rule changes, a lot of hitters, pitchers, the pitch clock with that. And you've been broadcasting in baseball since 1993. For one thing, how is it an adjustment for you as a broadcaster? And what are your thoughts on some of the new rules?
Well, the pace is really good. And, there's no filling or a lot less filling time because guys aren't walking around the mound and not walking around in the batter's box. They're not scratching this side, scratching that side. Oh, what am I going to do? Play. It's an entertainment entertaining game. Play it. I want to see the ball in action, the ball in play. And I like the fact that they widened the first base path. I thought that was great. And let's cut down on injuries. The other rule that was already in effect, but they're going to enforce it. Second baseman, third baseman, they cannot, put a knee down and block access to the bag. That's a good rule. They're going to get called on that this year. And that's, they'll follow up from a few years ago from the Posey rule. You can't blow up the catches anymore. So, and they took a couple of seconds off the pitch clock. Nothing wrong with that. Let's go. Put the ball in play. Move it. Let's go. Move it along.
We are talking to Seattle Mariners TV play-by-play broadcaster Dave Sims, first time on the show of the Loudmouth. It's interesting. We talk about all these different rules and all the money that the MLB is bringing in with all these endorsements and all this. When you look at the steroid era, and we've had a lot of players come on this show, ex-players and players have brought up, and we brought up the steroid situation and guys like Barry Bonds who made tons and tons of money, and Roger Clemens and Manny Ramirez and even David Ortiz, who was caught, who's still in the Hall of Fame. Do you believe, as a broadcaster, you've been in the game for such a long time, that these guys should still be in the Hall of Fame?
Boy, there has not been conclusive evidence about Barry and Roger, but certainly everybody suspects it. The numbers warranted. Part of me wishes Pete Rose was in the Hall of Fame, but he clearly broke a rule that was standard. It was right there out in front of you. Dude, you can't bet on gambling. Come on, man. Even if you bet for your own team, can't do it. Not supposed to do it. Can't do it. And then with the steroid guys, I don't think anything was proven. Certainly there was a lot of question about when Big Papi, he got banged. I don't know the whole backstory there, but it's easy to suspect that Bonds and Clemens did it. So I understand why they're not getting it. But at the same time, when you think about it, you can debate this until the cows come home 2 or 3 times. I mean, it was an illegal substance, and it was all about recovery. It didn't make Barry Bonds a better hitter. It didn't make Clemens a better pitcher. It was all about how quickly you can recover and tee it up again. That's what it was all about, and that gave a distinct advantage to them. And I know I've spoken to guys who are angry with a few other guys who did make the Hall of Fame who are suspected of having using PEDs and said, hey, man, he took money out of my pocket and a few other cats' pockets. So this is going to be a debate that's going to last till the end of time.
So one of the other Hall of Famers that got inducted this year was with the Seattle Mariners briefly, Adrian Beltre. Then he got to play in Texas, so you got to see him for a while. What was it like watching him play, and have you had any interactions with him off the field?
I liked him a lot. As strong a character dude as you ever want to meet, physically and mentally tough as anybody I've ever been around in all the sports I've covered. A great third baseman. He made that charge a slow roller up the third baseline, bare hand throw off balance. He made that play night in, night out, and the throws were always on the money. He never hung his first baseman out to dry. He started double plays. I mean, his range was outstanding, and it was always a blast after he had been here with us in Seattle, and then when he was with Texas, it was always a treat because he and Felix Hernandez was going to be pitching. Something funny was going to happen at some point. And there's some great video out there where one time Felix struck him out on just a phenomenal breaking ball and clearly Beltre was sitting on a fastball and he looked bad. And Felix, it's amazing he was able to pitch to the next guy because he was laughing so hard. And to see Beltre come back last year when Felix went into the Mariners Hall of Fame, it was a big surprise for Felix. It was an emotional moment for everybody. It was beautiful. It was great. He's a first-class dude. He really is.
Speaking of Felix Hernandez, the King, there's only 3 players in sports history that value the King name: Felix Hernandez, Henrik Lundqvist, and LeBron James. And I believe
Palmer. That's 4. Making Arnold Palmer.
All right, Arnold Palmer. I forgot him. Okay, Arnold Palmer, the King. But 4 guys. And Felix Hernandez, really, for like a 5-year, 6-year span, he was the best pitcher in baseball. It's not even close. Yep. He was a guy that I absolutely loved. I hated the Seattle Mariners because I grew up a Yankee fan, and the Mariners in the 90s, it was back
95. I know. It still hurts, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. It very much does. Don't even bring it up. Please stop it, Dave. Stop it. I'm tired, Dave. You're hurting my feelings now. But they've always, I remember Buhner and all those other guys, Ken Griffey and every single player, Edwin. I mean, everybody, I hated that Mariners team, and Randy Johnson, but there was something about Felix Hernandez that I loved. And when he went on the mound, you knew you were going to see something special. What type of pitcher was he? I mean, calling his games. What type of player is he now? A person is he now off the field as just just a civilian?
Well, he's got his own life going on down in Miami, I'm told. But I tell you what, when he was pitching here, I think we had a radio segment when Felix is pitching and they play the Leslie Gore song "Sunshine, Lollipops and Roses," because there were some bad clubs he was on, and it was like the Phillies back in '72 and Carlton won 27 of the 59 games or whatever it was, and he was winning a disproportionate percentage of the games. But it was a treat. Every 4th, 5th day, you knew you're going to have a very good chance to win. And when he had the fastball to go along with just the stupid changeup and the slider, it was great. And then the last couple of years, he was able to get away with the changeup. This is off-speed pitch. It was always exciting. The crowds always ticked up a few thousand more when he was pitching at home. And the opponents knew that they were in for a long couple 3 hours when he was on the mound. Dude was. And you're right. Those 4 or 5 year stretch, he was tremendous. He won 1 Cy Young. I thought he should have won a second for sure.
I remember when he won that Cy Young. I think he had a losing record, and
I think it was something like 12. He won like 12 or 13 games, but the analytics were overwhelming in his favor, right. And that's what got him the Cy. I mean, I grew up in the 50s and 60s, where if you won a Cy Young award, generally you probably got 20 or more wins. But that fact that he did it with 12, 13, I think it was 13 and 3 or something like that. He had a bunch of no decisions.
It was in back-to-back years too.
There's only 2 players that have done it with losing records, winning a Cy Young: Jacob deGrom and Felix Hernandez in the last 25 years.
Like I said, he didn't have a losing record. Now he had a low win total. It wasn't a losing record.
You sure it wasn't a losing? I thought it was a losing. Record.
Believe me, hey, I worked.
Maybe it was Zach Greinke.
Greinke might have had it.
I know he had one more.
Felix didn't have a whole bunch of wins, but again, the analytics told the story, and he dominated in those categories, and that's what kicked it over the top.
Yeah, because
he was unbelievable, and his prime. I mean, it was an event.
Yeah, because I think Zach Greinke the year before Hernandez won the Cy Young, and he had like a 10-11 record or
Maybe it
so
was
like
him.
that.
Maybe it was him.
Yeah, it wasn't the Cy Young.
No, Felix, the
13
year
and
he
12.
wins the
13
Cy,
and 12.
there you go. 13 and 12, yeah.
Yeah, because I think the only other pitchers, Zach Greinke and Jacob deGrom, when he won his first one with the Mets in 2018, were the only ones that had like 10 wins or less with a losing with a Cy Young award year.
That's who I meant. It was
Yeah,
probably
and-
Greinke. And yes, go ahead.
Yeah, Greinke 16 and 8 with a 2.16
All right, maybe it was a different
in
year. Then.
in 2009.
Okay, maybe it was a different year then.
Yeah, it had to be because and that's his only Cy.
I know there were two pitchers in the last 25, 30 years that have had losing records that won Cy Youngs. And I thought it was Felix Hernandez, but I'm wrong. And then we thought it was Greinke.
No.
So, all right, go ahead.
All right. So while we research who those were, I want to ask about the cultural impact on and off the field of Ichiro when he was with the Mariners. It was a city that almost lost the team. They were saying the Kingdome was being torn down or whatever it was. And Ichiro and that, like you're saying, Griffey, those guys revitalized the team. So what was the impact of that in the city of Seattle?
Well, I got here in 07, so Itch was at the he's probably at the 3/4 pole on his career. Still very effective. Played the hell out of right field. Played center field for I think part of 1 year. Great, unbelievable eye-hand coordination. I remember he beat Mariano Rivera with a walk-off at our place. Can't remember the year, but it was a dynamic moment. Mo had been, just killing everybody. And I remember I think of my call. I said, hey, a couple of Hall of Famers going head-to-head here. And Ichiro hit a bullet into the lower right field stands to win the game. It was a walk-off. Great player. I know some of it's interesting. Some of the guys that had played with him before I got there in 07, they weren't big fans of him. They thought he was selfish. They wish he had hit. If you'd watch him in batting practice, he could hit. He would go in that last round of BP. He could hit the ball in the upper deck, and the third deck, and everything. But he wanted to get his base hits, get on base, maybe steal, go first or third. I'm not arguing with his career at all. He's first ballot Hall of Fame. He goes in next year. I don't think there's any question about that. Great player and sort of a man of mystery. And I'll tell you this, his impact when we were over in Japan in 19, it's like growing up, I had seen there's what you call newsreels of people crying at the mere sight of Elvis or the Beatles during their time. There were men and women crying at the mere sight of Ichiro when he took the field last in 19, and then he played his last game over in Japan, and it was a long wait. He was in the clubhouse saying goodbye to his teammates, and then he came out, and like most of the 50,000 people were still in the ballpark, and they went absolutely nuts. And that's how big he is. I mean, even now, and he's still down here in spring training. I see him pretty much every day shagging. I didn't take BP, but he and Julio have become good buddies over the last couple of 3 years. And then when we get back to Seattle for home games, we'll see him, and he'll be out in the outfield shagging. If I get to the ballpark at 2:30, he's out. Working on his arm, throwing. He's like 50 years old, still in unbelievable shape. Believe me, if he could still hit, he would still be playing.
And by the way, it was Eric Gagne. Eric Gagne and Jacob deGrom. Eric Gagne was 2-3. Relief pitcher. He was 2-3. He won the Cy Young, and it was Jacob deGrom. So those are the two guys.
Leave it to the Mets to not give him any road support all year.
Okay.
Hey, we lack of run support. I mean, Felix has some whacked out mark about going 6 innings or more with giving up 4 or fewer hits, 2 or fewer runs, and coming away with no decisions. I mean, there's no decision mark. I mean. Yeah, and I only missed the first. Let's see, he became. I got here in 7. He was a full-time starter by then, so I think I missed a couple of years. But he lost. Since I've been here, he must have lost at least 30 games where he should have gotten a winning decision, but he had some bad offensive ball clubs.
Yeah, we are talking to Seattle Mariners TV play-by-play broadcaster Dave Sims. Tell us a little bit what you know about Ichiro Suzuki, and I'm going to tell you this right now. I loved Ichiro Suzuki. I love watching him every year, 200 hits. It didn't matter what year it was, how many games he missed, which wasn't a lot, but when he did, he still hit over 200 200 hits. The guy was unbelievable. He missed like 5 years of his major league career, or 6 years of his major league career playing in Japan, and he still hit over 3,000 hits. He probably would have had I think he would have had Pete Rose's record if he played 5-6 years before that. What are your thoughts to Ichiro Suzuki? Tell us a little bit about what you know about him.
That's fair. I mean, he's a guy that could hit a two-hopper to shortstop and make it a close play. He's a guy I didn't do a whole lot of interaction with him, but he was a big piece of what was happening here in Seattle. I mean, I'm not going to sit here. I got chapter and verse stories on the guy, but great player. I mean, the numbers and the video that you've seen, and how about the fact when he went to New York, when he got traded to the Yankees, and he went down to Miami, he impacted on both of those clubs, and they loved him in those two places. And I know a lot of guys I know in New York say, man, I wish, we had this guy in his prime. Imagine how big he would have been had he been a Yankee in his prime, getting all those hits, all those, for
his hitting wasn't even the best attribute that he had. It was his defense and the way he threw the ball in the outfield. He had the best arm in baseball.
Right. It was one of the great throwing arms. I mean, it was Clemente-esque. You think of great right fielders with the cannons out there. You got Ichiro, Dave Winfield, Clemente, Ellis Valentine, Dave Parker. That's one. Dave Parker. A lot of dudes, man. And Darrell Evans. Darrell Evans had a
Vladimir Guerrero.
Oh, wow. Excellent. Fabulous. I mean, he can bring it. It's a good one. Great. Great.
Oh, I loved watching Vladimir. He hated the Yankees, and he didn't want to play for the Yankees. For some reason, he couldn't stand the Yankees. And either did Ken Griffey Jr., by the way. So
Junior would have, Junior said, I don't have all the stories, but when his dad was playing with the Yankees and Billy Martin gave him a hard time, he would let the kids, the sons of some of the other players, mainly white players, do XYZ and hang out in the clubhouse, and he would always be on Junior. Junior never forgot it. Said, I'll never play for the Yankees. It's not going to happen. And I don't know what his numbers are off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure the numbers that he put up at Yankee Stadium are off the chart.
I think he said he would have retired like before he was 30, before going to the Yankees or something like that.
That's probably pretty accurate. Yeah.
He killed the Yankees. He always killed the Yankees. Every single time he killed the Yankees. I hated it. You ever see the movie Little Big League?
He's in it. I've seen the trailers. I didn't watch it, but
yes,
he and a whole bunch of dudes were in that thing.
Yes, they were. Dave Magadan, I think, was in it. If I'm not mistaken.
Him. Yeah, I got Max. Good guy. I haven't seen Max in a while, but he's one of my favorite dudes.
Yeah, so I remember the movie. It's so funny. Carlos Baerger is in the movie. So and he was also a good player. He played for
some good years, man. He could swing it.
When he was on the Indians, not when he was in the Mets.
Mid to late 90s Indians clubs. They made it to 2 World Series. They didn't win them, but boy, they could hit. Jim Thome and that crew.
You saw a lot of great players. You've seen a lot of good teams on that Seattle Mariners squad. You just never saw a championship.
I mean, 2 years ago, where are we? The 22 season, we made the playoffs, upset Toronto in Toronto, and then scared the daylights out of Houston. And Dusty Baker tells me even to this day, says, "Hey man, we're more afraid of you guys than anybody we knew that we could be playing moving forward in the playoffs." And it took they had to beat us 1-0, 18 inning game 3 of that series. Pena had a home run to win it. And we had the first game won, but Robbie Ray gave up a moonshot to Yordan Alvarez, and that turned the tide of the whole game because Mariners had done a great job on Verlander, who had really shoved it on him for most of the year, and they got him out of there in about the 5th inning or so. It really roughed him up, and then Houston just kept packing away. Mariners never really scored again, and that's why it came down to Alvarez hitting that big home run late in the game.
You mentioned Dusty Baker. Tell us, do you have a story about Dusty Baker that you could remember that's just so funny?
He is one of the coolest guys in the history of Major League Baseball. He freaking knows everybody. And if you go back and look at his, let's see, it was his news conference when he got the Nationals job. And I forget how the question came up, but I think it was about, hey, man, you know a lot of people. He said, yeah, well, it's, and he was basically raised in baseball by Hank Aaron. But the story that I remember hearing him when I listened to that news conference was talking about how he was, in San Francisco, and he was in Haight-Ashbury, and he was walking with some of the guys going to get something to eat. And he looked across the street, and there was Jimi Hendrix. He said, "Yo, Jimmy!" And he ran across the street, and they became pals, and they went off and did a little token going on. And then the other story that comes to mind is as you probably realize, there's not a hell of a lot of African Americans playing Major League Baseball these days. The number's way down, fewer than, what is it? We're in the 7-8% out of the 1,200 guys or whatever it is. But one year, I want to say 2011, 2012, he was with Cincinnati, and he had that home rented over in Scottsdale, and he invited all the Black and Latino retired players, scouts, media, anybody else that want to come. They had a big old house. And I'm telling you, it was amazing. Dudes who showed up because, Dusty Baker says, "Hey, come on down to the crib." And it was amazing. And I wished it would have been a great intrusion, but I wish we at the very least could have had a whole bunch of still pictures of the cats who were there. And recently retired guys who were scouting. And, it was just tremendous. It was one of the best moments I've ever had in sports, especially considering, not having to do with the broadcast or having to write anything. Because, I used to be a writer at the Daily News in New York. He's just a cool dude. And when he won the World Series a couple of years ago, I called him. I waited 3 weeks. I said, "All right, I know you probably heard from everybody." I said, "Give me an idea who you've heard from." He says, "Some guy named Obama." And then he started naming like LeBron. I mean, a who's who of cats in the world of sports and out of sports. One of the things that made him so great is that if he knew your hometown and they were going into your hometown, or like some Hispanic guys, or he would set up a meal or grab some takeout from a restaurant, a noted restaurant in that town, or he would, if he knew birthdays, he would do a special thing in the clubhouse. I mean, there's a lot of managers, they do, pretty cool things like that, but it's not just, they probably broke the mold, when Dusty came here, man. He's gone to the Hall of Fame, and I'm thrilled for him that he got the World Series, even though it was at our expense. But he's gone to the Hall of Fame. I think the last time I looked, he's 7th all time in wins, and he's a great person. And you can't. Matter of fact, the other day, who did we get? We got Ryan Stanek, who had been with them. He was a free agent. He's a really valued addition to the Mariners bullpen. He couldn't say enough good things about Dusty. And he said Dusty now works for the Giants. And Stanek said, "Hey man, Dusty was trying to get the Giants to take to bring me in." But I said, "Well, I'm glad you're here. That's going to work out really well."
Well, I love Dusty. He's one of my favorites. I wish he managed the Yankees at one point of his career, but it was like the only team he's never managed.
Yeah. He wanted to manage here in Seattle back when Lou Piniella, when that whole thing fell apart. He was hoping that he'd have got the job then. He loves hunting and fishing, loves this area, the Pacific Northwest. It just didn't work out.
Well, I love the toothpick. That's the best part of every time I see him on the bench. It's like, "Where's that toothpick?" And he's flipping it in his mouth. I've never seen him get it caught in his teeth. It's unbelievable. This guy's flipping it and flipping. I'm like, this guy is
he and UL Washington, who just passed away a couple of days ago, great infielder with the Kansas City Royals back in the late 70s, early 80s, was the same thing. He played with it. It's amazing that he never had an accident.
It's unbelievable. I watch it every time I watched Houston or the Giants. I always watched him in the dugout. He's standing, he's holding onto the bar, and he's flipping this thing in his mouth. I'm like, does it ever get caught in his teeth? I mean, seriously, it's a crap.
And the other thing too that's really great. There's so many things we've thought about Dusty for a long time, but he learned as a 20-year-old. Henry Aaron was still the king down in Atlanta. And he was like a second father to Dusty. And he said, "Hey, man," he taught a lot of us, particularly the black guys on the team, how to dress, how to, and we were young kids. We didn't know anything. He says, how to go to a fine restaurant, table settings, how to get the best clothes and all that kind of stuff. I mean, Cito Gaston tells stories about it. I mean, Ralph Garr. I mean, the guy's a Hall of Fame human being, let alone the fact that he's going to be, Hall of Fame. I wish, he's no kid anymore. I mean, he's still vibrant as all heck. It's 73-4, but it's one of those situations where you want to take that five-year rule and say, hey man, no. Here's an exception to the rule. Here's your plaque. Come to Cooperstown. We'll see you in July.
See, Dusty, you see what the thing with Dusty is, I think he'd still be managing and wheeling his wheelchair in the dugout if he could. You see, Dusty is like, instead of, with a toothpick in his mouth, he'll have these holes in his wheels where he can pull out a toothpick and stick it in his mouth and just spin it around. I call them wheels. We'll call it Dusty Wheels.
Let Dusty manage from the bullpen cart.
Yeah, why not? Why not? Stranger things, right?
Oh, Dusty probably would do it, but we really appreciate the time as always. I know you're a busy guy. You're getting ready for the baseball season, and we're looking forward to watching you and listening to your broadcasts. And hopefully we get you on very, very soon, my friend.
Hey, good to meet you guys. Where in Long Island you from?
We're from Suffolk County. He's from Connecticut, actually. Speedy's from Connecticut.
We're in Connecticut.
I'm from Reading, Connecticut. It's right near Fairfield, Bridgeport.
Yeah, I know it. Yeah,
and
everybody lives up there.
I moved down here with extended family because my extended family, my grandparents all grew up here. So I moved here in 2017 to work with this network, and I've been here ever since.
So you guys, you work out of the city, the greater
Long
New York
Island.
City, from your home. All right, good for you, man. Good for you.
Long Island, we work on 103.9. We have a show on 103.9 too. So
yeah, right on. Well, good for you.
Yeah, I traveled to the city for this event today. It was like a broadcast event with all these big names, these big, notch guys, and Stephen A. Smith was there and he was speaking. So, and I'm not a big Stephen A. Smith fan, but I would say he was fantastic today.
I'm sure he was.
Fantastic.
I'm sure he was.
Interview, so.
I heard you guys talking about. I heard you talking about before you came on about him. Maybe if and when Kimmel retires, he wanted that gig. He would take that gig.
Yes.
Oh Lord. Okay.
He did say it. He did say it. Somebody asked him. He said if Jimmy Kimmel came out and said the other day that he might be retiring next year, if ABC offered you the job, would you take it? And you see Steven, look down. He's like he puts his shoulders up and he'd be like, "Of course I would take it."
He's a piece of work. He's a good one. All right, boys. Hey, be well. I'll talk
Dave,
to you guys
we'll
during
see
the
you
season,
soon,
right?
man.
You bet,
Absolutely.
Man. All right, be good. Take care. Right, bye-bye.
Dave Sims, the voice of the Seattle Mariners. Fantastic.
Yes.
He is fantastic. He really is. Good personality. And listen, I don't know how I got through this show. I honestly don't know how I got through this show. It's crazy because I don't sleep. So I went to sleep last night at 2:00 in the morning. I woke up at 5. I got on a train at 5:30. I went the whole day. I walked through the door 5 minutes before the show. I did a show and now it's 11 o'clock. It'll be 11:30. I won't go to bed. I have to take a shower. I won't go to bed till 1:30. I'll be doing it again tomorrow. It's crazy. This is nuts. All right. And Dave says, "Oh, you stop crying. Stop crying." Dave, you want to jump into my I don't even know how to speak. In my pants. Oh, God. Speedy, would you like to jump in my pants?
I would not.
Would you like to jump in some man's pants?
No.
Anybody's pants.
It does not seem worth it.
Any ladies' pants?
I don't know. And it doesn't
Ladies' underwears.
Why would I jump?
Like you jump into a lady, a nice thong.
I feel like jumping would
What
not
do you
be
think?
worth it.
What type of color would you wear if it was a woman's thong?
I don't know.
Just take a color.
All right, purple.
Purple thong, Speedy. Could you imagine Speedy in a woman's purple thong? That would look pretty cool on you, man, Speedy. I mean, you have to shave your ass. You look like a Jabberwocky.
Oh God!
What you did?
All
like
this fodder for the next bet I lose.
Remember the Critters? Remember that movie Critter from the 80s? That movie, the little ball, little hairy things like trying to kill people.
Yeah, that
that's
sounds
popping out of Speedy's pants.
That sounds like an accurate depiction of how it would feel.
It's a critter! It's a critter!
Yeah, that does sound an accurate depiction.
Oh man,
I don't think I could scream that
that's
high
me being-
pitched, but
What,
yeah,
you can't do that?
not that high pitched, but it would be probably a similar reaction.
I could see you running. You see these big little ball things running after you. And he's
Oh
like,
yeah.
I got it in my pants. I got it in my pants. Anyways, thank you to Mike Wahle for joining us, ex-Packers, Panthers, and Seahawks guard. Thank you to Seattle Mariners TV play-by-play broadcaster Dave Sims for joining us. Thank you to all the fans that have been dealing with me for this show, and I'm sure you have your own thoughts of my craziness, but I lasted. I made it through the show, so I give myself a nice pat on the back. I don't know if I'm going to be doing that tomorrow. But that's why I'll be back a little bit early tomorrow so I can take a nice little nap before the show. Anyways, thank you to Fish, our executive producer. As always, he's fantastic, giving us so much good content to post up during our show. Shout out to Speedy for being Speedy.
That's a good way to put it.
Yes. And just shout out to everybody. Thank you for just tuning in and listening to us. And by the way, our YouTube page is doing pretty good. It's up. We're almost at 100 followers in 2 weeks. That's pretty good, man. We're averaging 50 followers a week. That's pretty good. It's pretty good. And by the way, the Jordan clip that you posted
I
up,
thought it was like 5,000 something.
last past it 6,000.
Wow.
6,000. So we got to teach Fish how to do this. So you both doing this, it will bring so many different thoughts and styles to what we're doing here at the Worldwide Sports Radio Network and Sports Loudmouth, as always. But thank you to all the fans again. We'll be back tomorrow. Who do we have on the show?
All right, so this time he will definitely be coming on. He confirmed with me today. 8:30 returning will be Martin
Chase.
Will be Martin
I saw
Chase at 8:30, and then at 10 o'clock, our Rangers guy, Forever Blue Shirts on-air talent, and writer Stephen Pappas will be coming on at 10.
Oh, Pappy Dappy. He's coming on, and the Rangers are about to roll. How about the Islanders playing?
Yeah, they are.
Ridiculous, man. What's going on? Patrick Watt, I don't know what he's doing. Maybe he lit a fire in their ass or something like that.
And they've coupled that with the skid the Red Wings are on, and the Islanders are in a playoff spot.
It's crazy. It is crazy how the Islanders before the All-Star break were 8 or 9 points out of a playoff spot. Yep. Now they're in a playoff spot. It's crazy. It really is. And then they haven't lost. I mean, I think they've won 7 games in a row.
They just lost yesterday.
Oh.
That ended the streak finally to the Kings. But that they still, because Detroit lost yesterday too, they're still now in the playoff spot because they have the same amount of games. The Islanders have a game in hand and the same amount of points.
It's crazy. It is crazy. But hey, listen, the Islanders playing pretty good hockey. That's all I'm going to say. There it is. The Jabberwocky. That's Speedy right there. Jabberwocky. Hanging out of his pants. You have a Jabberwocky?
I do not.
Well, I can help you.
I don't want you to help me.
All right. Do you have a gremlin?
No, I do not.
You're sure?
I do not have a gremlin. I would know if I had a gremlin based on what happened.
You might have a gremlin.
I do not.
You don't shave.
I do not have a gremlin.
You might have a gremlin in your pants.
Again, if because I pretty much have broken all of the 3 rules of Gremlins, of making sure they don't turn into what they turned into in that movie. So therefore, if that would have happened, I would have probably been attacked.
What do you mean attacked? All you got to do is wet it, and these things pop out of it.
Yeah, and not eat after midnight, and don't expose it to bright light, which I'm sure I've done all of those. So,
well, you expose yourself in bright light with no pants on?
I'm sure it's happened.
Have you done it with no pants? Does it grow?
I don't know because it's not a thing. If I had a gremlin, that would be different. I don't have a gizmo. I don't have a gremlin.
I don't have a gizmo, he says. Oh, Speedy, you are one interesting fellow. That's for sure. Anyways, thank you to all the fans. We'll be back tomorrow, and hopefully I'll be wide awake. Good night, everybody.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.